Chapter 1. You wake up on the Silk Road. The world returns slowly, not with noise, but with the gentle weight of quiet sounds that have continued long before you opened your eyes. You wake beneath a thick wool blanket laid across a simple woven mat. The air is cool enough that your breath briefly clouds before disappearing into the darkness. Around you, dozens of other travelers remain wrapped in their own blankets, their steady breathing blending with the occasional rustle of cloth. Somewhere nearby, someone coughs softly before settling once again into sleep. Above, heavy wooden beams stretch across the ceiling of a large caravanserai, their surfaces darkened by years of smoke from countless cooking fires. Small oil lamps burn low along the stone walls, their flickering flames casting warm circles of light that barely reach the corners of the room. Outside the thick mud brick walls comes a sound unlike any you have known before. A camel groans. Then another answers. The deep, rumbling voices rise and fall across the courtyard with surprising gentleness, accompanied by the faint ringing of bronze bells hanging from leather harnesses. The animals have already sensed that another day of travel is about to begin. You pull your blanket around your shoulders and sit upright. The stone floor beneath your feet feels cold after the warmth of sleep. Dust lingers in the air, carrying the familiar scent of wool, smoke, leather, and fresh bread already baking somewhere beyond the doorway. Without speaking, the other travelers begin waking one by one. An older man carefully folds his blanket before tying it behind a saddle. A young camel handler quietly checks a bundle of ropes resting beside him. Two merchants whisper together over a small wooden chest secured with bronze locks, making certain nothing shifted during the night. No one rushes. Life on the Silk Road rarely rewards haste. Every movement has settled into a rhythm learned through months, sometimes years, of constant travel. Even before the first light reaches the horizon, each person already knows the work waiting ahead. You step into the courtyard. The cool desert air brushes against your face. Above you, the stars still shine brilliantly across a sky untouched by clouds. Their reflections seem almost close enough to touch, undisturbed by city lights that do not yet exist in this distant century. The caravanserai surrounds the courtyard like a quiet fortress. Its thick mud brick walls protect everyone inside from wind, wandering animals, and the occasional threat of thieves who sometimes haunt lonely stretches of road. Heavy wooden gates remain closed for now, waiting until every caravan has prepared to depart. Rows of Bactrian camels kneel patiently across the packed earth. Their thick brown coats still hold traces of desert dust gathered during yesterday's journey. Some chew lazily on dried grasses while others simply rest with half-closed eyes, conserving their strength for another day beneath heavy loads. They appear calm. Almost thoughtful. It is difficult not to admire them. Unlike horses, these animals seem perfectly at home in places where people struggle. They ask for little, endure tremendous hardship, and somehow continue walking across landscapes that appear endless. Before long, you will learn that your own survival depends almost entirely upon theirs. Near one corner of the courtyard, smoke rises from several clay ovens. The smell reaches you before the sight does. Fresh flatbread. Warm flour mixed with wood smoke creates an aroma comforting enough to make your empty stomach tighten with hunger. Nearby, large bronze kettles simmer gently above glowing coals, filling the air with the rich scent of tea carried from distant eastern provinces. Travelers begin gathering quietly around the fires. Nobody pushes forward. There is enough bread for everyone. One elderly baker removes round loaves from the oven using a long wooden paddle before handing them out with practiced hands. Each loaf disappears quickly into waiting cloth bags, prepared for the long hours ahead. You accept one while its surface is still warm. The crust crackles softly beneath your fingers. It tastes simple. Only flour, water, and salt. Yet after days of walking, such ordinary food feels deeply satisfying. Beside you, strangers from lands you have never seen share breakfast together. One speaks a language filled with flowing sounds you cannot understand. Another answers in words entirely different again. A third quietly translates enough for everyone to laugh together over some forgotten story from yesterday's road. The Silk Road carries far more than silk. It carries voices. Ideas. Customs. Beliefs. Songs. Recipes. Friendships. Thousands upon thousands of ordinary people spend their lives moving not only goods across continents, but pieces of themselves as well. As dawn slowly approaches, the eastern horizon begins changing. Black becomes deep blue. Blue softens into violet. Then, almost without warning, thin bands of gold appear behind distant mountains. Every traveler notices. Conversations grow quieter. For a few peaceful moments, nearly everyone simply watches. Sunrise has become one of the few certainties shared by every road, every kingdom, and every traveler. As light spreads across the desert, details hidden by darkness slowly emerge. The walls surrounding the caravanserai glow warm orange. Leather saddles stacked beside the camels reveal careful stitching repaired countless times. Bundles wrapped tightly in wool cloth wait to become today's responsibility. Some contain bolts of shimmering silk woven months ago in distant Chinese workshops. Others hold bricks of compressed tea. There are sacks of pepper and cinnamon whose scents escape despite careful packing. Heavy blocks of jade rest inside padded wooden crates. Glass vessels wrapped in straw catch the first sunlight, sparkling for only a moment before disappearing beneath protective coverings once more. Every bundle represents weeks of labor by people you will never meet. Every package has already crossed mountains, rivers, and deserts, or soon will. You begin to understand something quietly remarkable. Almost nobody here is famous. There are no emperors tightening camel harnesses. No celebrated generals lifting water skins. No legendary explorers sweeping dust from worn sandals. Instead, there are ordinary people. Camel handlers. Guards. Cooks. Guides. Laborers. Merchants of modest means. Young apprentices hoping to earn enough coins to help their families. Widows continuing businesses begun by husbands long gone. Fathers dreaming of returning home before another winter arrives. History often remembers rulers. But roads remember workers. A loud wooden beam shifts as the great gates begin to open. Morning sunlight pours through the widening entrance like flowing gold. Outside lies another day. Another stretch of road disappearing toward distant horizons. Another uncertain journey between worlds connected not by armies, but by countless patient footsteps. You tighten your cloak against the cool morning breeze and take your place beside the waiting caravan. You have traveled only one night. Yet already you can feel the road beginning to change you. Ahead waits a year unlike anything you have ever imagined. And before long, you will discover that surviving the Silk Road has never been about finding the fastest path. It has always belonged to those willing to take the next quiet step. Chapter 2: Joining your first caravan. The first footsteps of the morning are softer than you expected. No trumpet announces the day's departure. No shouted command sends hundreds of people surging toward the open road. Instead, the caravan awakens like a slow-moving river. One traveler shoulders a bundle. Another adjusts a leather strap. Somewhere behind you, a kettle is lifted from glowing coals, and the last cups of warm tea are quietly shared before the journey resumes. The great wooden gates of the caravanserai stand fully open now. Beyond them stretches a dusty road that seems to vanish into the pale morning light. It winds between low hills before disappearing entirely, promising weeks of travel through landscapes you cannot yet imagine. The caravan begins to move. Not all at once, but one camel after another. The first animals rise awkwardly from the ground, folding and unfolding their long legs with surprising grace for creatures so large. Leather harnesses creak. Bronze bells tied beneath their necks chime softly with each slow step, creating a rhythm that soon becomes as familiar as your own heartbeat. You fall into line beside a broad-shouldered Bactrian camel whose thick coat is the color of dry earth. Twin humps sway gently beneath carefully balanced bundles wrapped in woven cloth. The animal turns its head toward you for only a moment, dark eyes calm and unhurried, before continuing forward. An older caravan master walks nearby. His beard has turned almost completely white, and the desert has left its mark upon his face. Deep lines gather around his eyes, carved there by decades of bright sun and blowing sand. He carries no expensive sword or jeweled ornaments. Instead, his wealth is measured in experience. Without raising his voice, he begins assigning the day's work. One group checks every saddle before the caravan leaves the shelter of the town. Another counts the water skins. Several young boys gather scattered bundles of firewood that will be needed when evening comes. Two experienced guards quietly move toward the front and rear of the line, watching the road ahead as naturally as breathing. You begin to notice something important. No one works alone. Each task depends upon another. A loose rope could mean lost cargo. A forgotten water skin might become a matter of life and death before sunset. An injured camel could slow the entire caravan. Success belongs not to the strongest traveler but to the most dependable one. As the town fades behind you, the landscape opens. Low shrubs cling stubbornly to dry soil. Small birds dart between patches of grass before disappearing into the stillness. Far beyond, mountains shimmer beneath the growing sunlight, their distant peaks softened by morning haze. The caravan keeps an easy pace. No one hurries the camels. These animals know the rhythm of the road better than many people. Their steady stride is slow enough to preserve strength yet constant enough to cover remarkable distances day after day. You quickly discover that matching their pace requires patience. At first, you are tempted to walk faster. Then slower. Eventually, you surrender to the caravan itself. Step. Bell. Step. Bell. The gentle music of bronze bells becomes the heartbeat of the journey. Hours pass almost unnoticed. The cool morning gradually surrenders to warmth. Sunlight brightens the desert floor, revealing countless shades of gold and pale brown that seemed invisible before dawn. The road remains busy. Another caravan approaches from the opposite direction. Its camels carry loads entirely different from your own. Large bundles of wool, polished wooden chests, baskets overflowing with dried fruit, and carefully wrapped rolls of carpet sway gently with each step. As the two caravans meet, both slow almost to a stop. There is no suspicion. Only recognition. The leaders greet one another with quiet smiles. News is exchanged. Which wells remain full? Has a bridge survived the spring floods? Did yesterday's winds bury part of the northern trail? Has anyone seen signs of bandits? Information travels as carefully as silk itself. A few minutes later, both caravans continue in opposite directions, carrying not only goods but fresh knowledge gathered along the road. By midday, the sun stands high overhead. The caravan master raises one hand. Almost immediately, the entire line slows. Without spoken orders, everyone begins preparing for the midday rest. The camels kneel obediently upon the hard ground. Bundles remain secured, but heavy harnesses are loosened enough to ease the animals' shoulders. Water is shared carefully. Not wasted. Every skin is measured with quiet discipline. You drink only enough to satisfy your thirst. There will be another well eventually. No one can say exactly when. Nearby, several travelers spread simple cloths across the ground. Lunch is modest. Fresh bread baked before sunrise. A handful of dried dates. Goat cheese wrapped in leaves. A few roasted nuts. Tea warmed over a small charcoal fire. No feast could feel more welcome. As you eat, conversations drift around you. A merchant from Samarkand describes snowy passes far to the west. Another traveler remembers orchards filled with apricots beyond distant valleys. Someone else speaks of bustling cities where streets overflow with languages from lands you have never heard named. You listen more than you speak. Already the Silk Road is teaching its first lesson. Every traveler knows something you do not. No single person understands the entire road. Only together does its full story exist. The afternoon journey begins beneath a sky so clear it seems endless. The desert stretches outward in every direction. Occasionally you pass weathered stone markers placed generations earlier by forgotten hands. Sometimes a lonely shrine appears beside the road, decorated with ribbons left by grateful travelers. Sometimes only silence accompanies your footsteps for hours. Yet the silence never feels empty. The wind whispers across distant dunes. Harnesses creak. Camels breathe steadily. Bronze bells continue their endless song. Late in the afternoon, the caravan climbs a gentle ridge. When you reach the top, the view steals your breath. Ahead lies another caravan, so distant that its camels appear no larger than insects moving across the golden plain. Farther still, another faint line of travelers disappears into shimmering heat. For the first time, you truly understand the scale of this ancient network. The Silk Road is not one road. It is countless roads. Some cross scorching deserts. Others wind through fertile valleys or climb dangerous mountain passes. Together they bind distant civilizations into something larger than any kingdom alone. As evening approaches, long shadows stretch across the earth. The caravan master points toward a cluster of trees barely visible on the horizon. There, someone says quietly. A small oasis. Tonight's shelter. The pace remains calm. No one races ahead. The oasis has waited centuries. It will still be there when you arrive. The first date palms rise slowly against the glowing sky. Their leaves sway gently in the evening breeze. Beyond them, fresh water reflects the fading sunlight like polished bronze. The camels seem to recognize it before you do. Their pace quickens ever so slightly. Not from excitement. From memory. They have walked this road before. Many times. Perhaps more faithfully than any human ever could. As camp begins to take shape beneath the palms, you help unload the day's burdens. The work feels easier than it did that morning. Your hands already know a little more. Your feet have found the caravan's rhythm. The road has accepted you, not because you have mastered it, but because you have begun to understand its oldest lesson. No one crosses the Silk Road alone. Every mile is carried together. Chapter 3: A Learning to Care for Camels. Morning returns quietly. Long before the sun reaches the tops of the date palms, the camp is already stirring. The small oasis that welcomed you the evening before still lies wrapped in cool shadows. A thin layer of mist hovers above the water, and the first birds begin their gentle calls from the branches overhead. The desert has a curious habit of changing its character with the light. Only hours ago it seemed harsh and endless beneath the afternoon sun. Now it feels almost peaceful. The cool air carries the scent of damp earth from the spring, mixed with wood smoke from the breakfast fire and the faint sweetness of ripening dates. Nearby, the camels are already awake. Some stand quietly, stretching their long necks toward low shrubs. Others remain kneeling, chewing patiently as though they have nowhere else to be. Their slow movements seem almost meditative, completely untouched by the worries that fill human minds. You watch an experienced handler approach the nearest animal. He greets it not with commands but with a gentle hand upon its neck. The camel does not flinch. Instead, it leans slightly into the touch, recognizing someone it has traveled beside for many seasons. Only now do you begin to understand that these animals are not merely beasts of burden. They are companions. Without them, the Silk Road would be little more than scattered footpaths between impossible landscapes. The older handler notices your curiosity and motions for you to come closer. His hands move with quiet confidence born from years of repetition. Every buckle, every knot, every strap seems familiar beneath his fingers. He begins by examining the camel's feet. At first glance they appear enormous, broad pads perfectly suited to soft sand. Yet even such remarkable feet require careful attention. Tiny stones are removed. Cracked skin is inspected. Any injury, no matter how small, could become serious after weeks of walking. A healthy camel carries not only itself but the hopes of everyone traveling beside it. Next comes the thick coat. Using a simple wooden brush, the handler gently removes loose dust gathered during yesterday's march. Clouds of fine sand drift into the morning light. The camel closes its eyes, remaining perfectly still. The work is unhurried. Nothing about caravan life rewards rushing. You take the brush yourself. The coarse fur feels surprisingly soft beneath the outer layer of dust. As you move slowly across the animal's shoulder, you notice old scars hidden beneath the thick hair. Perhaps they came from rocky mountain trails. Perhaps from rubbing harnesses after countless journeys. Each mark tells a story that no written record will ever preserve. When the brushing is finished, attention turns to the saddles. Unlike the riding saddles you may have imagined, these are carefully designed wooden frames built to carry heavy cargo while protecting the camel's back. The older handler shows you the padding beneath them. Layers of woven wool cushion the weight. Each morning they are checked carefully. If the padding shifts, even slightly, painful sores may develop before the day is over. A single careless mistake can shorten a journey or end it altogether. The cargo itself must be balanced with equal care. 2 large bundles are lifted into place. The handler steps back. He studies them silently. Then he removes one bundle and adjusts its position only a few finger widths. You wonder why such a tiny change matters. He smiles gently. Walk with uneven weight, he says, and you will understand before sunset. The lesson requires no further explanation. One by one, every camel receives the same careful attention. Harnesses are tightened. Leather straps are inspected for wear. Bronze bells are secured beneath sturdy collars. Water skins are fastened where they can be reached quickly. Nothing is left to chance. The caravan depends upon preparation far more than strength. As the sun climbs above the horizon, golden light spills across the oasis. The spring sparkles between clusters of reeds. Travelers gather with wooden buckets to water the animals before another long stretch of dry country. The camels drink deeply but without hurry. Unlike horses, they seem remarkably patient, taking what they need without wasting energy. You kneel beside the water's edge. For a moment, the surface becomes perfectly still. Your reflection looks different than it did only days ago. Not older. Not wiser. Simply quieter. Already the rhythm of the road is beginning to settle into your thoughts. Breakfast is simple. Fresh bread baked over yesterday's coals. A few dried figs. Warm tea poured from a blackened bronze kettle. The meal passes in comfortable silence. There is no need for many words among people who will spend the entire day walking together. Soon the caravan forms once again. The camels rise in their familiar sequence. Front legs first. Then the powerful hind legs. Each animal sways gently before finding its balance beneath the waiting cargo. You lead your assigned camel toward the front of the line. At first, you grip the rope too tightly. The animal pauses. It looks back at you with calm, dark eyes, almost as if waiting for you to relax. You loosen your hand. Immediately the camel begins walking again. The older handler notices. You do not force a camel, he says quietly. You earn its trust. Those words remain with you long after the conversation ends. The road stretches endlessly ahead. Dust rises beneath hundreds of broad padded feet. The familiar rhythm returns. Step. Bell. Step. Bell. Hours pass beneath a sky so clear it seems without end. Occasionally the caravan pauses while a guide studies distant hills. Sometimes a camel stops to nibble at a stubborn desert shrub growing between stones. No one becomes impatient. The pace belongs to the animals as much as the people. By midday, the heat settles heavily across the land. The air shimmers above the road. Even the wind grows quiet. Another rest stop is called. The camels kneel almost together, grateful for the chance to remove their burdens. This time, you know exactly what to do. You loosen the straps carefully. Lift each bundle evenly. Check the padding beneath the saddle. Brush away the dust that has gathered during the morning. Offer fresh water. Inspect the feet once more. The work that seemed unfamiliar yesterday already feels natural. Not easy, but familiar. As afternoon fades toward evening, the caravan reaches another stretch of open plain where grasses grow after recent rains. The camels spread out under careful supervision, grazing peacefully while the travelers prepare camp. Golden light washes across the landscape. Children laugh softly as they fetch water. Someone begins kneading dough for the evening meal. A merchant quietly records today's progress on a sheet of fine paper. Nearby, your camel lowers itself onto the ground with a deep, contented sigh. You sit beside it. Neither of you speaks, of course. Yet the silence feels strangely companionable. Its warm breath drifts slowly into the cooling evening air. You realize that this patient creature has carried more than trade goods today. It has carried your growing confidence. Tomorrow, the road will become longer. The deserts wider. The mountains higher. But tonight, beneath a sky painted with the first stars of evening, you understand a truth that every experienced traveler eventually learns. The Silk Road was never built by silk alone. It was built upon the steady feet of camels, the careful hands that cared for them, and the quiet trust that grew between them mile after mile across the ancient world. Chapter 4: Your First Days on the Road. By the fourth morning, the road no longer feels unfamiliar. You still wake before the sun, but now it is the gentle ringing of camel bells that stirs you rather than uncertainty. Somewhere beyond your blanket, a fire has already been lit. The scent of smoke mingles with the cool air, and someone quietly kneads dough while another pours water into a bronze kettle. The camp comes alive without haste. There is no signal to begin. No shouted order. Each traveler simply rises when the moment feels right, slipping naturally into the rhythm that has carried caravans across Asia for generations. You fold your blanket, secure it behind your saddle, and walk toward the animals. Your camel lifts its head as you approach. For a brief moment, its dark eyes meet yours. Yesterday you might have hesitated. Today you reach confidently for the harness. You brush away the fine dust that settled overnight, check the leather straps, inspect the padded saddle frame, and tighten each buckle exactly as you were shown. The work no longer feels like a list of instructions. It has become part of the morning itself, as ordinary as watching the sunrise. The eastern sky slowly brightens. A band of pale silver appears above the horizon, followed by gentle shades of rose and gold. The surrounding hills, dark only moments ago, begin to reveal their shapes. Date palms stand motionless in the still air, while beyond them the desert stretches outward like an endless sea waiting for the first light. The caravan begins moving just as the sun clears the horizon. Its warmth is welcome now. By afternoon, it will become something entirely different. The road winds across open plains scattered with hardy shrubs and patches of dry grass. Occasionally you pass small farming villages where narrow irrigation channels bring precious water to fields of barley and millet. Farmers pause from their work to watch the caravan pass, raising a hand in greeting before returning to their crops. Some children wave excitedly. Others stare with wide eyes at the long line of camels carrying goods from lands they may never visit. For them, the Silk Road is not a distant idea. It passes their homes every season. It brings news, stories, unfamiliar faces, and objects unlike anything crafted in their own villages. The caravan moves steadily onward. You begin to notice how carefully the guides choose the pace. No one walks until exhaustion. No one races ahead. The distance covered in a single day matters less than arriving with healthy people and healthy animals. The road rewards patience far more than speed. As the morning grows warmer, conversations begin to drift through the line. A merchant from the western cities speaks of vineyards growing along fertile valleys where rivers never seem to run dry. Another traveler describes forests so dense that sunlight barely reaches the ground. Someone else remembers snowy peaks where even summer mornings require heavy wool cloaks. The Silk Road seems to gather every landscape imaginable into a single journey. You realize that many of these travelers have spent years crossing the same routes. Some know every well between distant cities. Others can recognize a familiar mountain from days away. One elderly guide smiles as he points toward a lonely hill on the horizon. When you see that ridge, he says, you know the next spring is only half a day's walk. You look carefully. The hill seems unremarkable. Yet for those who know the road, it is as valuable as any map. Maps do exist, of course. Some merchants carry carefully drawn scrolls showing major routes between important cities. But they cannot record every shifting sand dune, every seasonal stream, or every hidden path around a dangerous cliff. Knowledge lives inside people as much as on paper. Near midday, the caravan pauses beneath a grove of hardy poplar trees growing beside a narrow stream. The shade is thin, but welcome. Camels kneel with familiar groans as their burdens are loosened. Some immediately begin chewing dry grasses. Others simply close their eyes, conserving strength. You refill wooden bowls with water before helping prepare the midday meal. Today's lunch is simple. Fresh bread, salted goat cheese, a handful of almonds, dried apricots traded from distant orchards, warm tea sweetened slightly with honey. The flavors are modest, yet deeply satisfying. Food has begun to lose its novelty and become something more important. Fuel, comfort, routine. As you eat, you notice something interesting. No two travelers prepare their meals exactly alike. One family seasons their bread with fragrant herbs. A Persian merchant carries dried mint. Another traveler adds crushed sesame seeds. Someone shares dates from an oasis visited weeks earlier. Even around a simple meal, cultures quietly blend together. The afternoon brings stronger heat. The sun hangs high above the desert, casting almost no shadows. Dust rises beneath every step. Your clothes cling lightly to your skin. Water becomes precious once again. The caravan master reminds everyone to drink steadily rather than waiting until thirst becomes overwhelming. The older travelers follow his advice without question. Experience has taught them lessons far more convincing than words. Hours later, the landscape changes almost without warning. The flat desert begins giving way to rolling hills scattered with wildflowers blooming after recent rains. Bright patches of red, yellow, and violet appear among the grasses. Butterflies drift lazily between blossoms. Small streams cross the road, requiring only simple wooden bridges built years before by local communities. The change lifts everyone's spirits. Even the camels seem to walk with renewed energy. By late afternoon, clouds gather above distant mountains. Not storm clouds. Gentle white clouds whose shadows drift slowly across the earth. The cooling breeze feels refreshing after the day's heat. You find yourself breathing more deeply. The road no longer feels endless. It feels alive. As evening approaches, the caravan reaches another caravanserai. Its high stone walls rise from the landscape long before the building itself comes fully into view. Travelers smile quietly. Not because the day's work has been difficult. Because shelter always brings gratitude. Inside the walls, the familiar routines begin once more. Camels are watered. Harnesses removed. Cargo inspected. Simple meals prepared. Lanterns hung beneath wooden beams. The courtyard gradually fills with voices from many lands. A musician quietly plucks the strings of a small lute near one corner of the courtyard. Children chase one another between stacks of saddles until their parents gently call them back. An elderly woman pours tea for travelers she has never met before. Nearby, two merchants compare small samples of cloth beneath the warm glow of an oil lamp, discussing tomorrow's trade. You realize that caravanserais are more than places to sleep. They are temporary villages. Every evening, strangers become neighbors. Every morning, neighbors become travelers once again. After supper, you climb a narrow staircase leading to the flat rooftop. The air has cooled considerably. Above you stretches a sky filled with more stars than you ever imagined possible. The Milky Way flows across the heavens like a pale river of light. Far beyond the walls, the desert lies silent. Somewhere in that darkness, other caravans continue their journeys. Others rest beside lonely wells or beneath scattered trees. Still others climb mountain passes illuminated only by moonlight. The Silk Road never truly sleeps. It simply moves at different rhythms across different lands. You sit quietly, listening to the faint bells of camels settling into the night below. Only a few days ago, every sound, every custom, every face had seemed unfamiliar. Now they have begun to feel strangely comforting. The road has not become easier. Your feet still ache. Dust still clings to every layer of clothing. The distance ahead remains almost unimaginable. Yet something inside you has changed. You are beginning to understand that survival on the Silk Road is not achieved through great acts of courage. It comes through countless ordinary moments. A carefully tied knot. A shared cup of tea. A trusted companion. A healthy camel. A patient step repeated thousands of times. And as you watch the stars slowly wheel above the ancient road, you realize that tomorrow will ask for nothing extraordinary. Only another quiet step. Then another. And another still. Chapter 5, Through Endless Deserts. Morning arrives without ceremony. The eastern horizon glows with the faintest trace of silver while the stars still linger overhead. For a few precious moments, night and day seem to exist together, balanced perfectly above the silent desert. The air is cold enough that you pull your wool cloak more tightly around your shoulders. It is difficult to believe that by midday this same landscape will shimmer beneath relentless heat. Around the camp, familiar routines unfold with comforting certainty. The fire is stirred back to life. Fresh bread bakes slowly upon hot stones. Tea leaves are dropped into blackened bronze kettles, releasing their earthy fragrance into the crisp morning air. Nearby, the camels rise one after another, their deep groans echoing softly across the empty plain. You no longer hesitate when preparing your own animal. Your hands move almost automatically. You brush away yesterday's dust. Check the leather straps. Inspect the padded saddle. Balance the cargo. Offer fresh water before securing the harness once more. Each task feels less like work and more like a quiet conversation between you and the road itself. The caravan master studies the horizon for several moments before giving a small nod. Today will be different. The oasis behind you is the last reliable source of fresh water for many days. Ahead lies one of the great deserts of Central Asia. A place where distance becomes difficult to measure. Where the horizon always seems farther away than it truly is. Where patience matters more than speed. The caravan begins moving just as the first sunlight spills across the dunes. At this early hour, the sand glows pale gold beneath long blue shadows. The world feels almost gentle. The wind is calm. The bells hanging from the camels' harnesses ring softly with every steady step. For a time, walking is easy. The cool air makes each breath refreshing. Your feet sink only slightly into the firm morning sand. Birds circle briefly overhead before disappearing toward distant rocky hills. It is peaceful enough that you almost forget where you are. But the desert has many faces. As the sun climbs higher, the world begins to change. The cool breeze fades. The shadows shorten. The sand reflects increasing warmth back toward the sky until heat seems to rise from every direction at once. The caravan master quietly signals for everyone to cover their heads more carefully. Loose cloth is wrapped around faces and necks. Water skins are checked once again. Nobody complains. Every traveler has learned to respect the desert long before attempting to challenge it. You begin to notice how carefully the caravan preserves its strength. No one wastes unnecessary movement. Conversations become shorter. Footsteps remain slow and deliberate. Even laughter gives way to quiet concentration. Survival here depends upon conserving energy as much as carrying supplies. Around midday, the shimmering air begins playing curious tricks upon your eyes. Far ahead, something glitters beneath the sunlight. It looks like a broad lake stretching across the desert floor. The water seems so real that you can almost imagine cool waves washing gently against the sand. You point toward it. An older guide smiles kindly. "It is only light," he says. The lake never grows closer. Instead, it slowly fades as the caravan continues forward. The desert enjoys reminding travelers that not everything they see can be trusted. The guides rely upon different signs. The shape of distant hills. The direction of the wind. The position of the sun. The stars at night. Even the growth of certain hardy plants can reveal where hidden moisture lies beneath the earth. Knowledge accumulated over generations often proves more valuable than any treasure carried by the caravan. Hours pass. The landscape changes almost without changing at all. Golden dunes give way to wide gravel plains where scattered stones crunch softly beneath your sandals. Then the sand returns again, sculpted into graceful waves by centuries of steady wind. Occasionally, lonely shrubs cling stubbornly to life, their roots reaching deep beneath the dry surface. You marvel at their persistence. If even these small plants can endure here, perhaps people can as well. The caravan pauses only briefly beneath the narrow shadow cast by a rocky outcrop. There are no trees. No streams. Only a small patch of shade hardly large enough for everyone. The camels kneel gratefully. Bundles remain tied in place to avoid unnecessary work. Lunch is simple. A piece of bread. Several dried dates. A handful of roasted chickpeas. Small sips of water carefully measured. No one eats more than necessary. Food can be replaced in the next market. Water cannot. As you rest, one of the younger travelers asks the caravan master why anyone would willingly cross such a place. The old man looks toward the endless horizon before answering. Because the road beyond it is worth reaching. His words are quiet. Almost effortless. Yet they remain with you long after the meal ends. The Silk Road has always asked difficult questions. And it has never offered easy answers. The afternoon grows hotter still. The sun seems suspended directly above the caravan. The air becomes so still that even the bronze bells ring less often. Dust settles upon your clothes, your hands, your face. You stop trying to brush it away. By evening it will simply return. The camels continue with astonishing steadiness. Their broad padded feet move confidently across loose sand where wheels would sink and horses would quickly tire. They seem perfectly adapted to this immense landscape. Watching them, you begin to understand why generations of travelers place such trust in these patient animals. They do not hurry. They do not panic. They simply keep walking. Step after steady step. Toward water. Toward shelter. Toward tomorrow. Late in the afternoon, the wind returns. At first it is little more than a pleasant breeze cooling the day's heat. Then it strengthens. Fine grains of sand begin drifting across the ground like smoke. The guides exchange silent glances. They have seen this before. Without needing instructions, everyone checks ropes, tightens coverings over precious cargo, and secures loose cloth around faces. The storm never fully arrives. Instead, it passes several miles away, its towering wall of swirling sand visible against the western sky. For nearly an hour you watch it moving across the desert like a living thing. Beautiful from a distance. Terrifying for anyone standing within it. The caravan continues steadily, grateful for its good fortune. As sunset approaches, the heat finally begins to release its hold upon the land. Long shadows return. The sand glows deep amber beneath the fading light. The day's destination appears almost magically. Not a town. Not another caravanserai. Simply a small cluster of ancient tamarisk trees growing around a hidden spring known only to experienced guides. The water is clear. Cold. Almost impossibly welcome. The camels drink patiently while travelers refill every water skin they carry. Some wash dust from their faces. Others simply sit beside the spring, listening to the gentle sound of flowing water after an entire day surrounded by silence. You kneel and cup the cool water in your hands. It tastes sweeter than any drink you can remember. Not because it is different. Because you have learned what it means to truly need it. Night settles slowly across the desert. One by one, stars appear above the camp until the sky once again becomes a brilliant river of light. The day's heat feels like a distant memory. A small fire crackles softly. Bread warms beside glowing coals. Someone quietly hums a tune from a homeland far beyond the horizon. You look back toward the darkness where the caravan walked only hours before. The desert remains vast. Unforgiving. Almost endless. Yet it no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like a teacher. Patient. Silent. Demanding. A place that strips away everything unnecessary until only the essentials remain. Water. Companionship. Steady footsteps. And the quiet determination to greet another sunrise, no matter how distant it may seem. Tomorrow, the road will continue. As it always has. As it always will. Chapter 6, Life at the Oasis. The sound that wakes you is not the wind. It is water. After days of hearing only the whisper of sand sliding across stone and the steady rhythm of camel bells, the gentle murmur of a spring feels almost miraculous. It is a quiet sound, no louder than a conversation spoken in confidence, yet it fills the morning with a sense of peace that the open desert rarely offers. You open your eyes before dawn. The stars are fading one by one above the dark silhouettes of date palms. Their long leaves sway softly in the cool breeze, casting delicate shadows over the sleeping camp. Nearby, your camel rests comfortably beneath the trees, its breathing slow and steady after yesterday's long march. For the first time in many days, there is no immediate hurry. The caravan master has announced that everyone will remain here until tomorrow morning. The animals need rest. The travelers need it as well. The oasis has become more than a stopping place. For one precious day, it will become home. You rise quietly and walk toward the spring. The water emerges from beneath a cluster of smooth stones before flowing into narrow channels dug carefully by generations of local farmers. Those channels wind between orchards of apricot and pomegranate trees before reaching small fields of barley and vegetables that seem almost impossible in the middle of such an unforgiving land. Children are already awake. They carry clay jars balanced carefully upon their shoulders, laughing softly as they compete to see who can fill them first. An elderly woman kneels beside the water, washing fresh herbs gathered before sunrise. Not far away, a man repairs a wooden irrigation gate that directs the precious flow toward another field. Every drop has a purpose. Nothing is wasted. You begin to understand that an oasis is not simply a place where water exists. It is a place where countless hands have learned how to protect it. Without careful stewardship, even the strongest spring would fail to support the people who depend upon it. Nearby, the caravan's camels are led to drink. Unlike the hurried gulps you might expect after days in the desert, the animals approach the water calmly. They lower their broad heads and drink deeply but patiently, as though they too understand that the spring must serve many lives. The handlers watch each camel closely. Some inspect the animal's feet once again. Others brush dust from their thick coats or massage tired shoulders where the saddles rested during the journey. The atmosphere feels almost festive. Not loud. Simply relieved. The road has granted everyone a day to recover. Breakfast is more generous than usual. Fresh flatbread still warm from the clay oven. Soft goat cheese wrapped in grape leaves. Sweet dates gathered from the surrounding palms. A handful of ripe figs. Steaming tea poured into small clay cups. Someone has even traded for fresh honey from a nearby village, and its rich sweetness spreads slowly across the warm bread. Simple food has begun to taste extraordinary. Perhaps because every meal is earned one careful mile at a time. As the morning brightens, the oasis grows busier. Another caravan arrives from the west. Its camels carry woven carpets, glass vessels wrapped carefully in straw, and sacks of fragrant spices whose aromas drift through the warm air before the cargo is even unloaded. Greetings are exchanged with genuine warmth. Many of the travelers recognize one another. The Silk Road is long, but its communities are surprisingly close. Guides who crossed paths months earlier now share tea beneath the same trees. Merchants compare notes about prices in distant cities. Camel handlers exchange advice about difficult stretches of road ahead. No formal meeting has been arranged. The conversations happen naturally, as they have for generations. News is as valuable as silk. You wander toward the small marketplace that has formed beside the well. It is modest compared with the great cities still waiting farther along the road, yet it contains wonders gathered from astonishing distances. Bundles of silk shimmer gently beneath woven awnings. Small bowls overflow with cinnamon, pepper, cloves, and saffron. Bright blue glass from western lands catches the sunlight like captured pieces of the sky. Fine paper rests carefully inside wooden boxes, protected from moisture and dust. An elderly craftsman shapes leather sandals while humming quietly to himself. Beside him, a woman weaves colorful cloth using techniques passed down through countless generations. Nothing feels hurried. People bargain politely. Prices are discussed over shared cups of tea rather than sharp arguments. Trust remains one of the most valuable currencies on the Silk Road. Without it, few journeys would succeed. As midday approaches, the heat returns, but the date palms offer welcome shade. You sit beneath one of the oldest trees, watching life unfold around the spring. Children chase one another between the irrigation channels. Travelers wash dust from their clothes. Camels rest comfortably beneath the trees. Birds dart across the water, their reflections shimmering beneath them. The oasis feels like a small island of green surrounded by an endless sea of gold. It reminds you that even the harshest landscapes contain places of kindness. Later in the afternoon, you help repair several pieces of equipment. Leather straps worn smooth by weeks of travel are replaced. A cracked wooden saddle frame is reinforced with fresh bindings. Water skins are carefully inspected for tiny leaks that might otherwise go unnoticed until the next desert crossing. An experienced merchant smiles as he works beside you. The road punishes forgotten repairs, he says. You fix small problems today so they never become large ones tomorrow. Again, the Silk Road teaches through quiet experience rather than grand speeches. As evening approaches, smoke begins rising from dozens of cooking fires. The aroma drifting through the oasis is richer than anything you have smelled in days. Stew filled with lentils and onions simmers inside black iron pots. Fresh herbs flavor roasted vegetables. Flatbread bakes rapidly against the hot walls of clay ovens. Someone has caught fish from a nearby stream flowing beyond the palms. The meal becomes a celebration of many lands. A Persian merchant offers dried pistachios. A traveler from India shares fragrant spices. Someone from the eastern provinces prepares delicate tea unlike any you have tasted before. Languages mingle around the fires. Although you understand only fragments, laughter requires no translation. Neither does kindness. After supper, musicians gather beneath the largest palm. One plays a reed flute whose soft notes drift gently through the cooling air. Another plucks the strings of a wooden lute. Children fall asleep against their parents' shoulders while older travelers quietly tell stories of distant mountains, snowy passes, and cities whose markets never seem to sleep. Above them all, the first stars begin appearing once more. You walk alone to the edge of the oasis. Beyond the last palms, the desert waits in complete silence. The dunes glow silver beneath the rising moon. Tomorrow, you will return to that vast emptiness. The caravan will once again stretch across the horizon. The bells will ring. Dust will gather beneath your sandals. Water will become precious again. Yet tonight, standing between the cool spring and the endless desert, you understand why every traveler remembers the oases long after forgetting individual days upon the road. They are more than places to refill water skins. They are places where weary bodies recover, friendships begin, knowledge is exchanged, and hope quietly grows before another difficult journey. You take one final look at the moonlit water. Its surface reflects the stars with remarkable clarity, as though the heavens themselves have descended into the spring. For a brief moment, the road feels impossibly far away. Tomorrow, it will call once more. But tonight, the oasis asks only one thing of you. Rest. Chapter 7, Caravanserais and Night Shelters. The oasis slips quietly behind you. As the morning sun rises above the palms, the caravan resumes its familiar rhythm. The spring that had seemed so permanent only hours ago slowly disappears into the distance until it becomes nothing more than a patch of green against an endless horizon. That is the nature of the Silk Road. Every place, no matter how welcoming, eventually becomes part of yesterday's journey. The road always continues. The day begins gently. A cool breeze follows the caravan across rolling plains where dry grasses sway beneath the first light. The camels walk with their usual patient confidence, their broad feet finding steady ground without hesitation. Bronze bells tied beneath their necks ring softly with every measured step, weaving together into a melody that has become as familiar as your own breathing. You have stopped counting the miles. Distance means little here. The caravan does not measure success by how far it travels in a day, but by whether everyone arrives together. As the sun climbs higher, travelers begin speaking quietly among themselves. Today's destination is not another oasis. It is a caravanserai. The word itself has become comforting. You have already spent several nights inside these fortified inns, yet each one is different. Some are built of sun-dried mud brick, blending almost seamlessly into the surrounding desert. Others are constructed from thick stone, their walls weathered smooth by centuries of wind. No matter their appearance, they all serve the same purpose. They are islands of safety along an ocean of uncertainty. By midday, the road grows busier. Small groups of travelers appear from side routes that join the main trade road. A pair of monks in simple robes walk quietly beside a mule carrying bundles of manuscripts wrapped carefully in cloth. A family travels with 2 ox carts loaded with pottery. Several horsemen from the western steppes ride at an easy pace, their bows secured across their backs but their expressions calm. Each group has its own destination. For a little while, all of them share the same road. You begin to appreciate something remarkable. The Silk Road belongs to no single kingdom. It crosses lands ruled by different kings, governors, and local leaders. Languages change. Coins change. Customs change. Yet the road itself continues, connecting people who might otherwise never meet. By late afternoon, the outline of the caravanserai appears. At first it resembles a small fortress rising from the plain. High walls stand against the wind, interrupted only by narrow watchtowers and a single great entrance gate. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys within, promising warmth, food, and shelter. A feeling of quiet relief passes through the caravan. Even the camels seem to sense that the day's journey is nearly complete. As you draw closer, details emerge. The walls are built from thick blocks of stone at the base, with mud brick rising above them. Wooden beams project beneath the roofline. Heavy doors reinforced with iron stand open, welcoming the evening's arrivals. A guard seated beside the entrance nods politely as each caravan enters. He asks few questions. Most travelers are expected. The road has a rhythm, and experienced keepers know roughly when caravans should arrive. Inside, the courtyard is alive with gentle activity. Dozens of camels kneel in neat rows while handlers remove saddles and carefully inspect the animals for signs of fatigue. Merchants carry chests into storage rooms protected by thick wooden doors. Stable boys lead horses toward shaded enclosures where fresh hay and water await them. The air carries familiar scents. Wood smoke. Fresh bread. Stewing lentils. Leather. Dust. Tea. It is a mixture that somehow speaks of both hardship and comfort at once. You help unload the cargo from your camel. The bundles feel no lighter than they did this morning, yet your movements are smoother now. The ropes come loose without hesitation. The saddle is lifted carefully. The camel lets out a long sigh before lowering itself onto the packed earth, grateful for its evening rest. Nearby, an elderly woman gently rubs oil into cracked leather harnesses. A young apprentice carefully counts sacks of pepper before storing them inside a cool room. 2 carpenters replace a broken wheel on a merchant's wagon. Everywhere you look, someone is repairing, preparing, or maintaining something. The caravanserai is never truly still. Its purpose is not only to shelter travelers. It keeps the road itself alive. As dusk approaches, the courtyard transforms. Lanterns are lit one by one, their warm glow reflecting against stone walls worn smooth by generations of visitors. Long wooden tables are carried into the center of the courtyard. Simple meals are served without ceremony. Bowls of lentil stew, fresh flatbread, roasted onions, olives, goat cheese, steaming tea poured endlessly from blackened kettles. People naturally gather wherever space allows. A merchant from Chang'an shares a table with a horse trader from Sogdia. Nearby, a family from Persia quietly enjoys supper beside two Buddhist monks. No one seems surprised by such company. The Silk Road has taught everyone that strangers rarely remain strangers for long. Conversation flows easily despite the many languages. Hands gesture. Faces smile. Occasionally someone translates a sentence for others. Sometimes words are unnecessary. A shared meal has its own language. After eating, the courtyard settles into a peaceful evening rhythm. One traveler mends a torn cloak beneath the light of an oil lamp. Another sharpens a small knife against a smooth whetstone. Several camel handlers compare the condition of their animals, exchanging advice gathered over years of experience. Nearby, children chase each other between the pillars until their mothers gently call them back inside. Laughter echoes briefly against the stone walls before fading into the night. You wander toward one corner of the caravanserai where a map has been scratched into a large wooden table by countless travelers over many years. It is not an official map. There are no precise measurements. Instead, it is a collection of memories. Someone has carved the outline of distant mountains. Another has marked a dependable well. Tiny symbols indicate dangerous river crossings, welcoming villages, or steep passes where snow lingers well into spring. You run your fingers gently across the worn markings. Each line represents someone who walked this road before you. Someone who hoped their knowledge might make another traveler's journey a little safer. History is often preserved in books. But here, it is preserved in kindness. Night settles quietly over the caravanserai. The great gates are closed until dawn. Outside, the desert belongs once more to silence and darkness. Inside, the walls create a feeling of remarkable security. You climb a narrow staircase leading to the rooftop. The view takes your breath away. Beyond the walls stretches an ocean of moonlit desert. Far away, another caravanserai glows faintly like a tiny star upon the earth. Somewhere beyond it lies another. And another. Together they form a chain of shelter stretching across thousands of miles, allowing ordinary people to cross landscapes that would otherwise be nearly impossible. You think about the countless travelers who have stood here before you. Merchants carrying silk. Monks carrying sacred texts. Craftsmen transporting tools. Families searching for new beginnings. Messengers carrying news between distant kingdoms. Most of their names have been forgotten. Yet without them, the Silk Road would never have become the great bridge between civilizations. The stars brighten overhead. The courtyard grows quiet as lanterns are extinguished one by one. Camels settle into sleep. The last kettle is removed from the fire. You return to your blanket beneath the wooden roof. The stone beneath you still holds a little warmth from the day's sun. Outside, the wind brushes softly against the walls. Inside, hundreds of strangers sleep peacefully together. Tomorrow morning, the gates will open again. The road will call. The bells will ring. The caravan will move forward. But tonight, surrounded by thick walls built through the generosity and labor of those who came before, you discover another quiet truth of the Silk Road. No one crossed it by courage alone. They crossed it because, every few days, someone had already built a place where weary travelers could safely rest. Chapter 8: Markets filled with many cultures. The caravanserai awakens before the city does. Long before the streets outside begin to fill with people, the courtyard is already alive with quiet purpose. Camels rise from their knees one after another, stretching stiff legs after a peaceful night. Lanterns flicker in the cool darkness while cooks prepare simple breakfasts of warm bread, lentils, and fragrant tea. You step into the courtyard carrying a clay cup still warm in your hands. The morning air feels crisp against your face. Above the eastern wall, the first rays of sunlight begin to paint the sky in soft shades of amber and pale blue. Today, the caravan will not travel far. Instead, you have arrived at one of the great market towns that flourish along the Silk Road. Here, roads from distant lands meet. Goods change hands. News spreads. Languages mingle. For a single day, the world seems to gather inside one place. The city gates open shortly after sunrise. Your caravan joins a slow procession of merchants, farmers, pilgrims, craftsmen, and travelers entering together. Nobody hurries. The market has stood here for generations. It will still be busy long after today's sun has set. As you pass beneath the high stone archway, a different world unfolds before you. Narrow streets wind between sturdy mud brick buildings with wooden balconies leaning gently over the road. Bright cloth awnings stretch from one shop to another, casting welcome shade across the busy lanes. The smell reaches you before anything else. Fresh bread baking inside clay ovens. Roasted lamb seasoned with herbs. Sweet dates drying beneath woven baskets. Cinnamon. Pepper. Cardamom. Frankincense. Every breeze carries another fragrance. Each one hints at a distant land. The market itself seems endless. Rows of stalls fill every open space. Some merchants display shimmering bolts of Chinese silk that catch the morning sunlight like flowing water. Reds as deep as autumn leaves. Blues brighter than the evening sky. Gold threads woven so finely they seem almost weightless. Nearby, another trader carefully arranges polished pieces of green jade upon a dark cloth. Each stone has traveled hundreds of miles before reaching this table. Customers lift them gently into the light, turning them slowly in their hands before nodding with quiet appreciation. Across the lane, glassmakers from western lands display delicate bowls and bottles unlike anything you have seen before. The sunlight passes through them, scattering tiny reflections across the wooden counters. They appear almost too fragile for such a demanding journey. Yet somehow they have survived deserts, rivers, and mountains. The Silk Road rewards careful hands. As you wander deeper into the market, you notice that trade is rarely hurried. People do not simply exchange coins for goods. They examine. They ask questions. They share tea. Sometimes they spend an hour discussing a single roll of silk before reaching an agreement. Trust grows slowly. Just like every successful journey. You stop beside a spice merchant whose stall glows with rich colors. Large woven baskets overflow with saffron so bright it seems to contain captured sunlight. Nearby lie piles of black pepper from India, cinnamon bark carefully tied into bundles, dried ginger, cloves, and fragrant star anise. The air itself feels warm with their aroma. The merchant smiles as he notices your curiosity. Without speaking, he offers a tiny pinch of crushed cinnamon upon his palm. Its scent is sweet and comforting. For a brief moment, you understand why people are willing to carry such precious cargo across half the known world. A little farther along the street, another crowd has gathered. A storyteller stands beneath a broad fig tree. Children sit cross-legged upon woven mats while adults pause from their shopping to listen. His words rise and fall like gentle music. Although you understand only parts of the tale, the expressions upon the listeners' faces tell you everything else. Wonder. Laughter. Curiosity. Stories travel the Silk Road just as faithfully as silk and spices. Some survive far longer. Near the center of the market stands a large public well. Travelers from many lands gather there throughout the day. Clay jars are filled. Horses drink deeply. Children splash cool water across dusty faces. It is impossible not to notice the astonishing variety of people surrounding you. A merchant wearing fine Chinese robes quietly discusses paper with a scholar from another city. A woman from Persia compares dyed wool with a local weaver. Horse traders from the northern grasslands inspect sturdy saddles crafted by skilled leatherworkers. Buddhist monks pass silently beside Muslim merchants. Nestorian Christian travelers greet old friends. A Zoroastrian priest purchases fresh grain for the next stage of his journey. Different beliefs. Different languages. Different customs. Yet here, beneath the same morning sun, everyone depends upon the same road. You begin to appreciate that the Silk Road does something extraordinary. It allows strangers to become neighbors, if only for a little while. As midday approaches, the marketplace grows even busier. Musicians begin playing reed flutes and small drums near the eastern gate. The melodies drift gently through the streets without overpowering the conversations around them. Nearby, craftsmen demonstrate their work. A potter shapes wet clay upon a simple wheel. A blacksmith carefully sharpens iron tools. A paper maker explains how mulberry bark becomes smooth writing sheets. Children watch with fascinated eyes. Perhaps one day they too will become travelers. Or merchants. Or craftsmen whose work journeys farther than they ever will. The afternoon heat settles across the city. Many people retreat beneath shaded courtyards where tea is served continuously. You accept an invitation to join several travelers seated upon woven rugs. The tea is poured slowly into small cups. Nobody drinks immediately. Conversation comes first. A guide speaks of heavy snows closing a mountain pass far to the west. Another traveler reports that recent rains have filled several wells along the southern route. A merchant mentions rising prices for silk in distant cities. Each piece of information quietly passes from person to person. Knowledge moves through conversation more quickly than any caravan. You realize that this exchange is just as valuable as the trade taking place outside. Late in the afternoon, you help your companions purchase supplies for the next stage of the journey. Fresh flour. Dried figs. Salt. Lamp oil. New leather straps to replace those worn thin by weeks of walking. Every purchase is made carefully. The road ahead offers few chances to replace forgotten necessities. As the sun begins to sink, the marketplace slowly changes once more. Some merchants cover their goods with heavy cloth. Others carefully count coins before placing them inside wooden chests. Children help sweep dust from the fronts of family shops. The crowds begin thinning as travelers return toward nearby caravanserais. You pause at the edge of the market and look back one final time. The streets still glow beneath the golden light of evening. Silk banners flutter softly above the stalls. The aroma of fresh bread drifts once more through the air. Voices from many lands blend together into a single gentle hum. No emperor built this moment alone. No conqueror could command such quiet cooperation. This marketplace exists because thousands of ordinary people wake before dawn each day. Farmers grow grain. Weavers prepare cloth. Camel handlers guide caravans. Craftsmen shape wood, leather, metal, and stone. Innkeepers prepare beds. Bakers light their ovens. Guides remember the wells. Together, without fanfare, they keep the road alive. You return to the caravanserai as twilight settles across the city. The gates close behind you with a deep wooden thud. Lanterns flicker to life around the courtyard. The camels rest peacefully after another day. Tomorrow, many of the faces you saw in the market will disappear toward different horizons. Some will travel east. Others west. Some north across mountain passes. Others south into fertile river valleys. Their paths may never cross again. Yet for one remarkable day, the Silk Road gathered them into the same place. And as you settle beneath your wool blanket once more, listening to the faint bells of resting camels echo beneath the evening stars, you understand that the markets of the Silk Road were never simply places to buy and sell. They were places where civilizations quietly met, one ordinary traveler at a time. Chapter 9: Silk, Spices, and Precious Goods. The morning market is quieter than it was yesterday. Many of the merchants who filled the streets at sunrise have already departed, their caravans stretching like long ribbons of color across the roads leading away from the city. The stalls remain, but the excitement of bargaining has given way to the quieter work of packing, sweeping, and preparing for another day. Your own caravan is getting ready to leave. Bundles that spent the night safely inside storerooms are carried carefully into the courtyard. Every package is inspected before being tied once more to the waiting camels. Until now, those bundles have simply been cargo. Today, you begin to understand their stories. An elderly merchant notices your curiosity as he secures a long roll of shimmering silk inside a waterproof covering. You've carried it for days, he says with a gentle smile. Perhaps today you should know what it truly is. He unties the wrapping just enough for the cloth to catch the morning light. It seems almost alive. The fabric is impossibly smooth beneath your fingertips. When he lifts it gently into the breeze, it ripples like calm water reflecting the sunrise. You have never touched anything quite like it. The merchant explains that this cloth began its journey many months earlier in workshops far to the east. There, families carefully raised silkworms that fed upon fresh mulberry leaves. When the tiny creatures spun their delicate cocoons, skilled workers patiently unwound each thread. Those threads were almost impossibly fine. One alone could barely be seen. Yet thousands together became cloth strong enough to survive a journey across continents. Weavers worked for weeks to create a single bolt. Dyers added colors using plants, minerals, and careful techniques passed from one generation to the next. Only after months of quiet labor did the silk begin its long journey westward. You look again at the folded fabric. It is no longer simply cloth. It carries the work of countless unseen hands. The caravan continues preparing for departure. Nearby, another merchant opened several wooden chests filled with tightly packed tea. Unlike the loose leaves you may have imagined, much of the tea has been compressed into solid bricks. They travel more easily this way, protected from moisture and taking up less space. One brick is broken apart with careful hands. Hot water is poured slowly over the leaves inside a clay pot. Soon the familiar earthy fragrance rises into the cool morning air. The merchant pours a small cup for you. Its warmth spreads gently through your hands before you take the first sip. The flavor is simple. Comforting. After weeks upon the road, tea has become more than a drink. It is a moment of rest shared between strangers. A promise that, at least for a little while, the journey can wait. Farther across the courtyard, another group carefully examines several sacks of spices. When the bags are opened, the air itself seems to change. Black pepper, cinnamon, cloves, cardamom, saffron. Each carries the scent of land separated by thousands of miles. The caravan master reminds everyone that spices are among the most carefully protected goods. Not only because they are valuable, because they are difficult to replace. Some traveled farther than many of the people carrying them. A single handful might have crossed forests, rivers, mountain passes, and deserts before arriving here. Their fragrance fills the courtyard for only a few moments before the sacks are sealed once again. The road cannot afford carelessness. As the caravan leaves the city behind, the merchant walks beside you. He points occasionally toward different bundles secured across the camels' backs. There, he says quietly, glass from the western lands. The crates are packed with extraordinary care. Layers of straw cushion every vessel. A single careless stumble could destroy months of work. A little farther back, another camel carries carved blocks of jade wrapped inside thick wool. Their polished green surfaces remain hidden beneath protective cloth, safe from dust and accidental damage. Elsewhere, finely woven carpets from Central Asia are rolled tightly into long cylinders. Bundles of paper rest inside waterproof leather coverings. Dried medicinal herbs hang from wooden frames. Even simple salt, carried in sturdy sacks, has its own importance. Nothing travels without reason. Nothing is carried merely because there is space. Every item has someone waiting for it far beyond the horizon. By midday, the caravan pauses beneath the scattered shade of several ancient poplar trees. Lunch is simple once again. Bread, cheese, dried fruit, tea. As everyone eats, the merchant continues explaining the quiet mathematics of trade. Not with numbers. With patience. He tells you that many goods change hands several times before reaching their final destination. A bolt of silk woven in eastern China may never travel all the way to the Mediterranean with one owner. Instead, it passes from merchant to merchant. Each caravan carries it one stage farther. The same is true for spices, glass, paper, precious stones. No single traveler crosses the entire Silk Road. The road itself completes the journey. You find that thought strangely beautiful. The Silk Road succeeds because ordinary people trust one another enough to continue work begun by strangers. The afternoon road winds gently through low hills scattered with wildflowers. The breeze carries the scent of dry grass mixed with distant pine forests. Birds circle lazily overhead. The camels maintain their familiar rhythm. Step. Bell. Step. Bell. Walking has become almost meditative. Each footstep seems to leave yesterday behind while quietly welcoming tomorrow. Late in the afternoon, you notice another traveler carrying something quite different. It is neither silk nor spice. He carefully protects a bundle of handwritten scrolls wrapped in layers of cloth. The merchant smiles when he notices your curiosity. Knowledge travels too, he says. You realize he is right. Books. Maps. Religious teachings. Medical knowledge. Stories. Poetry. New farming methods. Different ways of making paper, glass, and metal. The Silk Road carries ideas just as faithfully as it carries goods. Sometimes those ideas prove even more valuable. As evening approaches, the caravan reaches a peaceful riverside meadow. The water flows quietly beneath an old wooden bridge weathered by countless seasons. Camp is made beneath tall willow trees whose branches sway gently in the cooling breeze. The camels drink deeply before settling onto the soft grass. Nearby, travelers begin preparing supper. Someone grinds grain into fresh flour. Another stirs a pot of lentils over a small fire. Tea kettles are placed upon glowing coals. The familiar evening routines unfold without discussion. Everyone knows their place. After the meal, you sit beside the river watching the last light reflect upon its surface. The merchant joins you. Neither of you speaks for several minutes. There is no need. Finally, he picks up a smooth stone from the river bank. He turns it thoughtfully in his hand before placing it back where he found it. People often believe, he says quietly, that the Silk Road was built by precious things. He gestures toward the resting caravan. The truth is simpler. It was built by ordinary people willing to carry them. The river continues flowing. The stars begin appearing one by one. Somewhere nearby, a camel lets out its familiar low call before settling comfortably into the evening. You look toward the long line of resting animals. Each carries treasures from distant lands. Yet none of those treasures would ever reach another city without the patient footsteps of the people and animals beside them. In that quiet realization, the goods themselves seem almost secondary. Silk may give the road its name. But it is perseverance, trust, and countless ordinary journeys that give it life. Chapter 10: Languages Without Borders. When you first joined the caravan, the road seemed divided into countless worlds. Each village had its own customs. Each town echoed with unfamiliar voices. Each marketplace introduced words that slipped past your understanding like birds crossing the sky. At times, the differences felt overwhelming. Now, after many weeks upon the road, you begin to notice something else. Despite the many languages, the journey somehow continues without stopping. The sun has not yet risen when the camp begins to stir. A pale moon still hangs above the western hills, while the eastern horizon slowly brightens with soft ribbons of silver. The river beside yesterday's camp reflects the changing sky so perfectly that it seems to hold another world beneath its surface. Mist drifts lazily across the water. The willows stand motionless. Only the quiet crackling of breakfast fires disturbs the morning silence. You kneel beside the river to wash your face. The cold water wakes you completely. Nearby, the familiar sounds of caravan life begin once again. Leather straps are tightened. Bundles are lifted. Tea is poured. Camels rise with long, patient groans before settling beneath the weight of another day's journey. As the caravan moves away from the river, the merchant who has been teaching you walks quietly beside your camel. He smiles as two travelers ahead begin speaking. One speaks in a language from the eastern provinces. The other replies in the flowing sounds of Sogdian. Neither seems to understand the other's words completely. Yet somehow, after a few moments of gestures, smiles, and patient repetition, both nod in agreement. The merchant notices your puzzled expression. The road has many languages, he says. But it has only one purpose. You think about those words as the morning unfolds. Again and again, you witness conversations that seem almost impossible. A Persian trader points toward the sky, then toward a mountain pass. A local shepherd answers with only a few words and several careful gestures. Within moments, both understand that snow still lingers on the higher trails. Elsewhere, a monk thanks a baker for fresh bread using words the baker clearly does not know. The baker simply smiles and bows his head. Kindness rarely requires translation. As the sun climbs higher, the caravan reaches a small farming village nestled beside fertile fields. Unlike the busy market towns you have visited before, this place feels quiet. Children pause from carrying water to watch the camels pass. An old farmer leans upon his wooden hoe, raising one weathered hand in greeting. Your caravan stops only long enough to refill several water skins. The villagers welcome everyone warmly. Fresh bread is offered. Cool water is shared. No one asks where each traveler was born. The road itself is enough introduction. While waiting beside the village well, you notice something remarkable. A young boy sits beneath a tree practicing letters upon a smooth wooden tablet. His teacher gently guides his hand, showing him how each careful stroke forms part of a written word. The merchant explains that written language often travels farther than spoken language. Many traders cannot speak to one another fluently. Yet they recognize written contracts, official seals, and carefully prepared letters. Paper has become one of the Silk Road's quiet miracles. It carries voices across distances no person could easily walk. As the caravan resumes its journey, the road gradually fills with more travelers. A group of pilgrims walks peacefully toward a distant monastery. Several horse traders ride past in the opposite direction. A messenger carrying official documents urges his horse into a steady trot before disappearing beyond the next hill. Everyone seems to belong to a different world. Yet for a few moments, they all share the same road. Near midday, the caravan pauses beneath a stand of tall poplar trees. Their leaves shimmer softly in the warm breeze, casting moving shadows across the grass. Lunch is prepared as always. Bread, cheese, dried apricots, tea. Simple food shared without ceremony. During the meal, an elderly interpreter joins your group. His beard is white, and his back bent slightly with age. He has traveled these roads for more than 40 years. Someone asks him how many languages he speaks. He laughs gently. I stopped counting long ago. The travelers smile. He explains that no one truly masters every language along the Silk Road. Instead, people learn enough. Enough greetings. Enough numbers. Enough words for water, bread, shelter, prices, directions, and friendship. Sometimes that is all a journey requires. He tells you about moments when 5 different languages were needed to complete a single trade. One sentence spoken in Chinese. Translated into Sogdian. Then into Persian. Then into Arabic. Finally understood by a merchant from another distant city. The process took time. No one complained. Patience has always been one of the Silk Road's greatest skills. The afternoon road winds gently between low hills covered with wild herbs. The air carries scents of sage and thyme crushed beneath passing footsteps. Birdsong replaces the sounds of crowded markets. Only the familiar ringing of camel bells keeps steady company. You find yourself thinking less about words than you once did. Weeks ago, every unfamiliar conversation reminded you of what you did not understand. Now, they remind you of something else. The world is far larger than any single language. Late in the afternoon, dark clouds gather over distant mountains. Not a storm. Only enough to soften the sunlight into gentle shades of gold. The cooler air lifts everyone's spirits. Conversations become more relaxed. One traveler begins humming a melody from his homeland. Another quietly joins in with a different tune. Neither song matches the other. Yet somehow they blend beautifully beneath the open sky. As evening approaches, the caravan reaches another roadside inn. Smaller than the caravanserais you have visited before, it consists of only a few stone buildings surrounding a sheltered courtyard. Even so, it feels welcoming. Fresh water waits in large clay jars. Simple rooms offer protection from the night wind. Warm food simmers above several cooking fires. Inside the dining hall, long wooden tables quickly fill with travelers from many lands. You listen carefully. The room is alive with voices. Chinese, Persian, Sogdian, Turkic, Arabic, Tibetan. Others you cannot even identify. Together they create a gentle murmur unlike anything else in the world. No single language dominates. None needs to. Everyone finds a way to be understood. After supper, you step outside into the quiet courtyard. The stars have returned. The familiar camel bells ring softly as the animals settle down for the night. You realize that the Silk Road has taught you something unexpected. It is not necessary to understand every word spoken around you. Sometimes a smile carries enough meaning. Sometimes sharing bread says everything. Sometimes helping someone tighten a loose saddle or refill an empty water skin becomes its own conversation. The road is built upon countless acts of understanding that happen without perfect speech. You look upward at the brilliant stars stretching across the heavens. The same constellations guide every traveler, no matter what language they speak. They require no translation. They simply shine. And beneath their quiet light, thousands of ordinary people continue walking toward one another, proving that the greatest connections are often made long before the right words are found. Chapter 11, Faith Along the Road. The first sound you hear is not a camel bell. It is a prayer. Soft and distant, carried by the cool morning air before the sun has even touched the horizon. You cannot see the person speaking. The words drift across the quiet valley like the murmur of a gentle stream, rising and falling with calm certainty. Soon the sound fades, leaving only the whisper of wind moving through the grass. For a long moment, nobody in the caravan speaks. Some travelers continue preparing breakfast. Others pause briefly before returning to their work. No one seems surprised. Along the Silk Road, mornings often begin this way. Not always with the same prayer, but always with someone greeting the new day through faith. You step from your blanket and breathe deeply. The valley is still wrapped in pale blue shadows. Dew clings to the tall grasses beside a narrow stream that winds quietly between smooth stones. Above the eastern hills, the sky slowly brightens from silver to gold. Nearby, your camel waits patiently. You greet the familiar animal with a gentle hand upon its neck before checking the saddle one more time. The routine feels comforting now. Brush away yesterday's dust. Inspect the straps. Balance the load. Offer fresh water. Simple tasks repeated often enough become a form of quiet meditation. As breakfast is shared, you notice several travelers quietly observing different morning customs. One elderly Buddhist monk sits beneath a willow tree with closed eyes, his breathing slow and peaceful. Not far away, a Muslim merchant unrolls a small woven mat upon clean ground before bowing toward the west. A family from Persia carefully tends a small oil lamp whose flame they have protected throughout the journey, honoring traditions passed down by their ancestors. Near the stable, a Nestorian Christian traveler traces a small cross upon his chest before breaking bread with his companions. No one interrupts another. No one argues. The road has taught everyone that faith, like language, travels in many forms. Soon the caravan resumes its journey. The valley gradually narrows into a winding path bordered by rocky hills. Wildflowers bloom among patches of green where spring rains still linger. The cool morning makes walking pleasant, and conversations drift quietly between travelers. You find yourself walking beside the Buddhist monk. His robe is faded from many years beneath the sun, yet carefully mended wherever the cloth has worn thin. He carries very little. A walking staff. A small bundle. Several carefully wrapped manuscripts. Nothing more. You ask where he is traveling. He smiles. Toward a monastery beyond the mountains. His answer is simple. He does not speak of great missions or important discoveries. Only another destination along the road. He explains that monasteries scattered across the Silk Road often welcome weary travelers regardless of where they come from. Some offer food. Some provide shelter. Others copy sacred writings or teach young students how to read. Their quiet work spreads knowledge just as surely as merchants spread trade. By midday, the caravan reaches one such monastery perched upon a hillside overlooking the valley. Its walls are built of pale stone weathered by centuries of wind. Colorful prayer banners flutter gently from wooden poles, their faded fabric moving softly beneath the breeze. The monastery is peaceful rather than grand. Monks greet arriving travelers with warm smiles. Clay cups of tea are offered without expectation of payment. Fresh bread is placed upon long wooden tables. The caravan rests here through the hottest hours of the afternoon. You wander slowly through the shaded courtyard. Several monks sit patiently copying texts onto fine paper using careful brushstrokes. Others tend small vegetable gardens growing beside stone walls. One elderly monk gently repairs worn sandals belonging to another traveler. There is no sense of urgency. Only quiet purpose. You begin to realize that faith often reveals itself through ordinary kindness. Not only through ceremonies. While the caravan rests, a physician traveling with another group examines an injured camel whose leg has become swollen after weeks upon the road. A Muslim merchant helps hold the animal steady. A Buddhist monk prepares clean cloth. A Christian traveler boils water over the fire. No one asks about another's beliefs before offering assistance. The road leaves little room for such divisions. Survival depends upon cooperation far more than agreement. Later in the afternoon, the caravan continues climbing gradually toward higher ground. The air grows cooler. Pine trees begin replacing dry grasses. The scent of resin drifts gently through the forest. At a bend in the path, the guides pause beside a weathered stone shrine. It is small. Almost hidden among moss-covered rocks. Fresh flowers have been placed there recently by passing travelers. The caravan master bows his head briefly before continuing. Some travelers do the same. Others simply walk on quietly. Respect requires little effort. As evening approaches, you descend into another valley where a bustling town waits beside a river. Its skyline reflects the remarkable diversity of the Silk Road. A Buddhist temple rises upon one hill. Farther away stands the graceful dome of a mosque. Near the marketplace, the modest bell tower of a Christian church catches the evening light. Not far beyond, a Zoroastrian fire temple sends a thin ribbon of smoke into the darkening sky. Different paths. Different traditions. All sharing the same horizon. The caravan enters another welcoming caravanserai. As always, the evening unfolds through familiar routines. Camels are watered. Harnesses removed. Bread baked. Tea poured. Yet tonight something feels different. Travelers from many faiths gather around the same cooking fires. An old Persian storyteller shares tales while children listen with wide eyes. A monk laughs quietly with a merchant over memories of difficult mountain crossings. A shepherd thanks an innkeeper for a warm meal. No one seems eager to persuade another. Instead, they exchange experiences. The road has already given everyone enough challenges without creating new ones. The town below glows softly beneath hundreds of oil lamps. From one direction comes the distant chanting of evening prayers. From another, the gentle ringing of a temple bell. Farther away, voices rise together in quiet song. Each sound is different. Together they create a peaceful harmony carried upon the cool night breeze. You sit beneath the stars for a long while. When this journey began, you imagined the Silk Road as a road for goods. Silk, spices, tea, jade, paper. Now you understand that people carried far more than cargo. They carried hopes, traditions, questions, beliefs, ways of understanding the world. And just like the merchants exchanging goods in crowded markets, those ideas met one another with surprising patience. But nearly everyone learned something about the people walking beside them. The stars shine equally above every temple, mosque, church, shrine, and monastery. The desert wind does not ask where your prayers are spoken. The mountains do not care what language your sacred songs use. The road welcomes every weary traveler willing to walk it with humility. As the last lanterns below begin to fade, you pull your wool blanket around your shoulders and look toward the dark horizon where tomorrow's journey waits. The Silk Road has connected civilizations through trade. But perhaps its quieter achievement lies elsewhere. For thousands of miles, it taught ordinary people that living beside difference was not only possible. It was necessary. And mile by patient mile, that lesson became one of the greatest treasures ever carried across the ancient world. Chapter 12: The Great Cities of the Silk Road. You wake to the sound of a city breathing. Not the hurried noise of panic or celebration, but the slow rhythm of thousands of ordinary lives beginning another day. Somewhere beyond the walls of the caravanserais, a baker slides fresh loaves into a clay oven. A blacksmith's hammer strikes iron with measured patience. Donkeys pull wooden carts over worn stone streets, their hooves echoing softly through the morning air. The city has been awake long before the sun. You step into the cool courtyard where the familiar morning routines are already underway. Camels kneel quietly while their handlers inspect harnesses and tighten ropes. Travelers gather around steaming kettles, warming their hands around small cups of tea before another day begins. Today, however, the caravan will not immediately return to the road. There is business to complete. Supplies to purchase. Letters to deliver. Animals to rest. For the first time in many weeks, you have an entire day to explore one of the great cities that keep the Silk Road alive. As the eastern sky brightens, the city gates swing open. The streets beyond are already filling with people. You follow your companions through narrow lanes paved with smooth stone polished by countless footsteps. Wooden balconies lean over the streets above, draped with colorful woven cloth that moves gently in the morning breeze. The city feels enormous. Not because of towering buildings, but because of the lives unfolding within them. Every doorway seems to open onto another craft. A potter shapes wet clay into graceful bowls. A carpenter smooths cedar boards for new doors. Women weave bright textiles upon wooden looms whose rhythmic clatter echoes into the street. Children carry baskets of vegetables toward the morning market. An elderly scholar quietly copies a manuscript beside an open window where the sunlight falls perfectly across the page. No one appears extraordinary. Yet together they create something remarkable. A city is built not by kings alone, but by thousands of ordinary people who rise before dawn each morning. You make your way toward the central marketplace. Yesterday you visited a busy market town. This place is different. The streets seem almost endless, branching into districts devoted to every imaginable trade. One quarter is filled with metalworkers. The ringing of hammers creates a steady rhythm as sparks leap from glowing iron. Nearby, leatherworkers stitch sturdy saddles and camel harnesses strong enough to survive months upon the road. The scent of tanned hides mingles with cedar shavings drifting from nearby workshops. Farther along, an entire street is devoted to books. Shelves overflow with carefully copied scrolls and stitched manuscripts. Paper from Eastern workshops rests beside texts translated into many languages. Scholars browse quietly while scribes continue their careful work, dipping brushes into ink before adding another line to a page that may travel farther than they ever will. You pause to watch one elderly calligrapher. His hand never seems to tremble. Each character flows into the next with remarkable calm. He smiles without looking up. The road carries words farther than feet. His quiet observation remains with you as you continue walking. The marketplace grows busier as the morning passes. Merchants call politely to passing customers. Fresh fruit glows beneath woven baskets. Pomegranates. Grapes. Melons. Apricots. Dates. The colors seem almost impossible after so many days surrounded by sand and stone. Nearby, bakers stack warm loaves high upon wooden tables. The aroma fills the street. People stop not because they are wealthy, but because everyone needs bread. Life in a great city depends upon countless ordinary exchanges repeated every day. A coin changes hands. A loaf is wrapped in cloth. A customer offers thanks. The baker begins preparing another. At the center of the city stands a broad public square shaded by ancient trees. Travelers gather there to rest before continuing their journeys. Some write letters home using fresh sheets of paper purchased nearby. Others repair worn sandals or replace broken walking staffs. Camel handlers trim harnesses beneath the shade while merchants quietly compare ledgers recording months of careful trade. The city feels less like a destination than a place where thousands of journeys briefly overlap. By midday, the heat settles gently across the rooftops. You follow your companions into a shaded tea house overlooking a narrow canal. The water flows slowly beneath graceful wooden bridges where children pause to watch small fish swimming below. Inside, the room is peaceful. Conversations remain quiet. Tea is poured slowly into simple ceramic cups. No one rushes. Outside, the city continues moving at its own patient pace. An elderly merchant points toward the streets below. He explains that cities like this do far more than collect goods. They collect knowledge. A physician arriving from the West may teach new methods of treating illness. An engineer from the East may describe improved irrigation channels. A craftsman introduces a stronger way to build wagon wheels. A scholar shares new ideas copied from distant libraries. The city becomes a meeting place not only for merchants, but for experience itself. You leave the tea house feeling that the streets have somehow grown even larger. Every workshop hides another story. Every traveler carries another lesson. The afternoon is spent helping unload part of your caravan's cargo into secure warehouses. Silk is inspected carefully before being stored inside cool rooms protected from dampness. Spices are weighed upon delicate bronze scales. Bundles of paper are counted one by one. Glassware wrapped in straw is examined for cracks after its long journey. Everything is recorded. Nothing is left to memory alone. You begin to appreciate how much trust holds the Silk Road together. Merchants often leave valuable goods in the care of people they may not see again for months. Yet the road continues because reputations matter. An honest trader gains friends in many cities. A dishonest one soon finds every gate closing before him. As evening approaches, you climb the city walls. The view stretches farther than you imagined. Beyond the rooftops lies a patchwork of gardens, orchards, canals, and cultivated fields feeding the thousands who live within these walls. Far beyond them, the open road disappears toward distant mountains glowing beneath the setting sun. Tiny lines of caravans approach from every direction. Some carry silk eastward. Others bring horses, glass, spices, wool, jade, or paper. Each caravan seems small against the vast landscape. Yet together they keep the city alive. The wind carries the scent of evening fires as smoke rises gently from countless kitchens. Families gather for supper. Children run through narrow streets before being called home. Lanterns begin appearing one by one, their warm light reflecting against stone walls worn smooth by generations. The city becomes softer after sunset. Less crowded. More intimate. You realize something as you watch the lights spread across the streets below. History often remembers emperors who ruled great cities. But those cities endured because of people whose names were never recorded. The baker who rose before dawn. The woman who wove cloth. The mason who repaired the walls. The water carrier who filled the public wells. The stable boy who cared for weary horses. The innkeeper who welcomed strangers. The scribe who copied another page before the light faded. The caravan handler who led patient camels safely through the gate. They are the true heartbeat of the Silk Road. As darkness settles completely, the city gates close for the night. Tomorrow your caravan will once again leave behind crowded streets for lonely roads stretching toward the horizon. The bells will ring. Dust will rise. Mountains will draw closer. Yet tonight, beneath a sky filled with familiar stars, you carry with you one quiet understanding. The great cities of the Silk Road were never great simply because they were large. They were great because they gave ordinary people a place to meet, to work, to rest, and to quietly connect worlds that might otherwise have remained forever apart. Chapter 13: Sandstorms and Burning Heat. The city disappears behind you before the morning is fully awake. Its walls, so impressive beneath yesterday's golden sunlight, gradually shrink into the distance until they blend with the pale hills beyond. The bustling markets, the smell of fresh bread, the gentle murmur of crowded streets, all of it fades behind the steady rhythm of the caravan. Ahead waits the desert once more. It greets every traveler with silence. The air is cool when you begin walking. A faint breeze carries the scent of dry earth and distant sage growing among scattered rocks. The first light spills across the landscape, turning the sand into endless waves of soft gold. Long shadows stretch from every camel, making the caravan appear twice its true length. For a little while, the journey feels almost effortless. The bells hanging beneath the camels' necks ring quietly. Birds skim low across the ground in search of seeds left behind by the night's cool air. Your breathing falls naturally into the familiar rhythm of walking. Step. Bell. Step. Bell. The road asks for nothing more. The caravan master walks near the front, studying the sky as often as he studies the path ahead. At first, you wonder why. The heavens are perfectly clear. Not a single cloud interrupts the pale blue above. Then you remember something one of the older guides once told you. In the desert, the sky speaks long before the wind. You begin paying closer attention. The horizon seems strangely blurred. Far to the south, a faint brown haze hangs just above the earth. It is so distant that it might easily be mistaken for ordinary dust. The experienced travelers notice it immediately. Nobody appears frightened. But conversations become quieter. The pace of the caravan remains calm, though preparations begin almost without words. Loose bundles are tightened. Water skins are checked once more. Every traveler unwraps a length of cloth and keeps it close at hand. The desert has taught them to prepare before danger arrives, not after. The morning continues peacefully. The haze remains far away. For now. As the sun climbs higher, the world slowly transforms. The coolness vanishes. The breeze fades until the air itself seems to stand perfectly still. Heat begins rising from the ground in shimmering waves. The distant hills dance strangely, their outlines bending as though reflected upon moving water. Even your own shadow appears softer, less certain. The desert seems to breathe. You pull the edge of your head covering farther across your face. Only your eyes remain uncovered. The older travelers have already done the same. Not because the sun has become unbearable. Because they know it soon will. By midday, every stone radiates warmth. The sand beneath your sandals feels almost hot enough to burn. The caravan pauses beside a narrow ridge where several weathered boulders cast precious strips of shade. No trees grow here. No spring flows beneath the rocks. Only a little relief from the relentless sun. Lunch is eaten quietly. Bread. A few dried dates. Small pieces of cheese. Measured sips of water. Nobody wastes energy speaking more than necessary. Even the camels remain remarkably still. They kneel together, chewing patiently while waiting for the cooler hours ahead. You glance toward the southern horizon. The brown haze has grown larger. Much larger. It no longer resembles distant dust. Now it appears as a broad wall stretching across the earth itself. The caravan master rises slowly. His face remains calm. The wind is changing, he says. No one questions him. Everyone already understands. The meal ends immediately. Bundles are secured once more. Camels are loaded with practiced efficiency. The pace quickens, not into panic, but into purposeful movement. The guides lead the caravan toward a line of rocky hills rising several miles ahead. If they reach them in time, the cliffs may offer some protection. The wind arrives first. It begins as a gentle breeze brushing across your face. Within minutes it grows stronger. Loose grains of sand skip across the ground like tiny living creatures. The bells hanging from the camels' harnesses begin ringing more rapidly as the animals instinctively lower their heads. The sky changes color. Blue slowly gives way to pale yellow. Then amber. The sunlight itself becomes dim, as though passing through thin cloth. The wall of sand continues advancing. It is strangely beautiful. A moving mountain of swirling gold stretching from one horizon to the other. Beautiful enough to admire. Powerful enough to fear. The caravan master raises one arm. The signal passes instantly through the line. Every traveler wraps cloth tightly across nose and mouth. Eyes are shielded as carefully as possible. The camels are guided closer together until they form a compact line. Nobody runs. Running would only scatter the caravan. Instead, everyone trusts the rhythm practiced by generations before them. Stay together. Protect the animals. Wait. The first wave reaches you with surprising gentleness. Then the true storm arrives. The wind roars across the desert like distant surf crashing upon unseen shores. Sand strikes your clothing in countless tiny bursts. The air fills with golden dust until the world beyond a few steps simply disappears. The sun vanishes completely. You can see only the camel walking directly ahead. Even its outline fades in and out behind swirling clouds of sand. Breathing becomes difficult. The cloth across your face traps much of the dust, yet every breath still carries the taste of earth. The caravan continues moving slowly toward the shelter of the rocks. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The camels remain astonishingly calm. Their long eyelashes protect their eyes. Their nostrils narrow against the blowing sand. They seem to understand the storm far better than any human could. You place one hand upon your camel's saddle. For several minutes, that single point of contact becomes your entire world. Not sight. Not distance. Only trust. Eventually the dark shapes of the rocky hills emerge through the swirling dust. The guides lead the caravan into a narrow hollow where the cliffs break the force of the wind. The camels kneel almost immediately. Travelers gather close together behind the stone walls while the storm continues raging overhead. Time loses meaning. Perhaps an hour passes. Perhaps two. Inside the sheltered hollow, conversation remains quiet. No one complains. No one celebrates. The desert demands respect, not pride. Gradually, the wind begins to weaken. The roar softens. The air clears little by little. Golden sunlight slowly returns through the thinning dust. When you finally step back into the open, the landscape has changed. Fresh dunes now cover sections of yesterday's road. Small shrubs have disappeared beneath drifting sand. Even familiar landmarks seem different. The desert has quietly redrawn itself. The guides study the horizon carefully before choosing the next direction. The road exists. But it is never exactly the same road twice. As evening approaches, the heat finally fades. The storm has left the air remarkably clear. Distant mountains stand sharply against the western sky, glowing purple beneath the setting sun. The caravan makes camp beside a cluster of ancient tamarisk trees whose roots somehow continue finding hidden water beneath the sand. As supper cooks over a small fire, everyone quietly brushes dust from clothing, saddles, and harnesses. Fine grains of sand seem to have found their way into everything. Your boots. Your blanket. Your bread. Even your hair. The desert always leaves a small reminder of its presence. After the meal, you lie upon your blanket beneath a sky so clear that every star seems close enough to touch. The storm already feels strangely distant. Only the fresh dunes surrounding the camp reveal how much the day has changed. You think about the city left behind this morning. Its orderly streets. Its solid walls. Its predictable routines. Out here, nothing remains certain except the next careful step. The Silk Road has never promised comfort. It has only offered a path. And today, the desert reminded you that every traveler who crossed it survived not by conquering the land, but by learning to move with patience, preparation, and quiet respect for forces far greater than themselves. Chapter 14: Crossing Snowy Mountain Passes. The desert releases you almost without warning. For many days, the horizon has been nothing but waves of golden sand, dry valleys, and scattered shrubs clinging stubbornly to life. Then, little by little, the landscape begins to change. The air grows cooler. The wind carries a different scent. Not dust. Not sun-baked earth. But pine. Fresh water. Stone. Ahead, the mountains rise like a great wall stretching across the world. Their lower slopes are dressed in forests of cedar and juniper. Above them, dark cliffs climb toward peaks crowned with brilliant white snow that glows beneath the morning sun. You stop walking for a moment. The sight is almost overwhelming. The mountains seem peaceful from a distance. The older travelers know better. They have crossed them before. The caravan leaves the broad desert road and begins following a narrow valley where a clear river tumbles over smooth stones. The sound of flowing water accompanies every step, replacing the endless silence of the dunes. It feels like entering another world. Wildflowers bloom beside the riverbanks. Tall grasses bend gently in the breeze. Birds sing from the branches overhead. Even the camels seem curious, lifting their heads to breathe the cool mountain air. By midday, the valley begins to narrow. The road becomes steeper. Loose stones replace soft sand beneath your feet. The caravan slows naturally. No one urges the animals forward. The mountains decide the pace now. Every step must be careful. The caravan master walks near the front, studying the path with quiet concentration. He has crossed these passes many times. He knows where winter snow lingers long after spring has arrived. He knows which cliffs shed loose rocks after heavy rain. He knows where narrow ledges allow only a single camel to pass at once. Here, experience matters more than courage. The afternoon climb becomes more demanding. The air feels thinner. Breathing requires slightly more effort with every 100 steps. Your legs grow heavier. The cargo upon the camels seems heavier too, though nothing has changed except the road beneath their feet. The animals move with remarkable patience. Their broad feet, so perfectly suited to the desert, now search carefully for secure footing among uneven rocks. At particularly narrow places, the guides walk beside each camel, placing reassuring hands upon the harness. Trust becomes even more valuable here. One frightened animal could endanger the entire caravan. As the path climbs higher, the trees begin growing farther apart. Cool breezes drift down from unseen peaks. You pull your wool cloak tighter around your shoulders. Only days ago, the desert sun made every layer of clothing feel unbearable. Now you are grateful for every thread of warm wool. The Silk Road rarely allows travelers to become comfortable for long. Near a bend in the trail, the caravan pauses to allow another group to pass. They are descending from the high country, their animals carrying blocks of precious jade wrapped carefully in thick felt. The travelers' faces are weathered by wind and cold. Their cloaks are dusted with traces of old snow. They greet your caravan warmly before exchanging important news. The highest pass remains open. A recent snowfall has made one narrow section slippery. The northern trail should be avoided until warmer weather. No written notice marks these dangers. The mountains rely upon people carrying knowledge from one caravan to the next. Information becomes another form of survival. The climb continues through the afternoon. Soon patches of snow begin appearing beneath shaded rocks. At first they are small. Thin ribbons of white hidden from the sun. Then they grow larger. Soon the ground beside the road remains covered by broad fields of snow untouched since winter. The air becomes wonderfully clear. Every distant peak seems close enough to reach. The silence changes too. It becomes softer. Snow absorbs sound. Even the familiar camel bells seem quieter beneath the towering mountains. Late in the afternoon, the caravan reaches a high meadow surrounded by rugged cliffs. A small stone shelter stands there, built by travelers generations earlier. Its thick walls offer protection against mountain winds that can arrive without warning. Tonight, this humble refuge becomes your home. The camels are carefully unloaded. Unlike the desert camps, where animals often graze among sparse shrubs, here they feed upon patches of rich alpine grass growing beside streams fed by melting snow. They seem grateful for the change. You kneel beside one of the clear mountain springs. The water is astonishingly cold. It flows directly from the snow fields above, pure enough that tiny stones are visible upon the stream bed below. You cup your hands and drink. The water is crisp. Refreshing. It carries the taste of the mountains themselves. As evening approaches, the temperature falls quickly. Small fires are lit inside sheltered circles of stone. Travelers gather close together, warming chilled hands around bowls of hot stew filled with barley, onions, and herbs gathered along the valley. Tea is poured again and again. The warmth spreads gently through tired bodies. Outside the shelter, the mountains slowly turn gold beneath the setting sun. Then orange. Then deep violet. Finally, only the highest snowy peaks continue glowing long after the valleys below have entered darkness. Someone quietly points upward. High above, a group of wild mountain goats moves effortlessly across cliffs that seem impossible to climb. They disappear almost as silently as they appeared. The mountains belong to them. You are only a visitor. The following morning begins before sunrise. Today, the caravan must cross the highest pass. The guides wake everyone early. The air is so cold that each breath forms pale clouds drifting into the darkness. Your blanket is dusted with frost. The fire is stirred back to life while bread warms beside glowing coals. No one lingers over breakfast. The weather in the mountains changes quickly. It is best to cross the highest ground while the morning remains calm. The climb becomes steeper almost immediately. Snow now covers much of the path. Travelers walk carefully, placing each foot where the person ahead has stepped. The camels move slowly but steadily, their handlers speaking softly to keep them calm. Ice glitters upon nearby rocks. The wind whistles gently through narrow gaps between towering cliffs. Finally, after hours of patient climbing, you reach the summit. The world opens before you. Behind lies the long road across deserts and valleys. Ahead stretches another landscape entirely. Endless ranges of mountains fade into blue distance. Rivers sparkle like silver threads far below. Beyond them, unseen cities and unfamiliar roads await. The caravan pauses only briefly. Not for celebration. Simply to breathe. To look. To remember. Countless ordinary travelers have stood upon this very pass. Merchants. Monks. Camel handlers. Pilgrims. Messengers. Families. Most have been forgotten by history. Yet every one of them helped keep the Silk Road alive. The descent begins carefully. Snow crunches beneath your boots. The sun climbs higher, slowly warming the frozen earth. The most difficult part of the crossing is already behind you. As you glance back one final time toward the brilliant white peaks, you realize that the mountains have taught a lesson very different from the desert. The desert demands endurance. The mountains demand humility. Neither can be conquered. Both can only be crossed through patience, preparation, and the quiet willingness to trust those who know the road better than you do. And with every careful step down the far side of the pass, the Silk Road leads you onward once again, toward another season, another landscape, and another chapter of a journey that seems as endless as the mountains themselves. Chapter 15: Illness, Injury, and Exhaustion. The mountains slowly fade behind you. Their snow-covered peaks remain visible for several days, growing smaller each morning until they finally dissolve into the blue haze of the horizon. The road descends into broad valleys where rivers flow more gently, fields of barley ripple in the breeze, and scattered villages welcome the return of warmer air. The journey becomes easier. Or at least, it appears to. The older travelers know that this is often when people make their greatest mistakes. After surviving deserts and mountain passes, it is tempting to believe the hardest days are over. The Silk Road quietly reminds you otherwise. Not every danger arrives with a storm. Some arrive one slow step at a time. The morning begins peacefully. A light mist drifts above the river beside your camp. Birds sing from willow branches hanging over the water, while the first rays of sunlight turn the surface into rippling sheets of gold. Breakfast is familiar now. Fresh bread. Goat cheese. Warm tea. Dried fruit shared between companions. Simple food that has become part of your daily rhythm. The caravan leaves camp shortly after sunrise. The road follows the river through fertile countryside where farmers are already tending their fields. Oxen pull wooden plows through dark soil softened by recent rain. Women gather vegetables from carefully tended gardens. Children carry baskets of grain toward small stone mills where wooden wheels turn steadily beneath flowing water. For a little while, everything feels gentle. The bells ring softly. The breeze is cool. The path is wide. Then you notice something unusual. One of the younger camel handlers has fallen behind. Normally he walks near the middle of the caravan, speaking cheerfully with whoever happens to be beside him. Today he walks alone. His shoulders droop. His face appears pale. The caravan master notices immediately. He quietly shortens the day's march. No one complains. No one questions the decision. On the Silk Road, people learn to watch one another carefully. Illness rarely announces itself with dramatic warning. It often begins with small changes that only patient companions notice. By midday, the young handler is shivering despite the warmth of the sun. A physician traveling with the caravan kneels beside him. His leather satchel contains simple but valuable tools gathered over many years. Clean cloth. Small bronze instruments. Bundles of dried herbs. Medicinal roots. Honey. Oil. Nothing miraculous. Only knowledge patiently collected from countless journeys. The physician feels the young man's forehead. Examines his eyes. Listens quietly as he describes his symptoms. There are no grand speeches. No certainty. Only careful observation. The caravan makes camp early beside a clear stream shaded by tall poplar trees. The patient is given a comfortable place to rest beneath woven blankets. Fresh water is brought regularly. The physician prepares a warm herbal drink whose fragrant steam drifts gently through the afternoon air. Others quietly take over the young handler's work. Someone cares for his camel. Another repairs his harness. A third prepares his evening meal. No one is asked. They simply help. You begin to realize that survival along the Silk Road has always depended upon ordinary acts of generosity. Tomorrow it may be someone else who needs assistance. Perhaps even you. As evening approaches, The physician sits beside the fire explaining that long journeys test the body in countless ways. Weeks of walking wear down muscles. Dust irritates the lungs. Cold mountain nights give way to burning desert afternoons. Water changes from one region to another. Food becomes unfamiliar. Even healthy travelers grow tired. The body carries every mile. The stars appear one by one above the quiet camp. The young handler sleeps peacefully. The physician seems cautiously hopeful. The caravan rests. Morning brings encouraging news. The fever has lessened. The young man remains weak, but his smile has returned. Everyone breathes a little easier. The journey continues. Several days later, another lesson arrives. This time it is not illness. It is carelessness. One of the merchants hurries while unloading heavy cargo near a steep riverbank. His foot slips upon loose stones. He falls awkwardly. The sharp sound of pain echoes across the camp. Several travelers reach him immediately. His ankle has swollen badly. Walking will be difficult for many days. Again, the caravan adapts. The injured merchant is given a place upon a small wagon whenever the road allows. Others carry his responsibilities. His companions carefully divide his cargo among several camels to reduce the burden. Progress becomes slower. No one speaks of leaving him behind. Such a thought never seems to occur to anyone. A caravan succeeds together. Or it fails together. The weeks continue passing. Your own body changes as well. The blisters that covered your feet during the first days have become rough calluses. Your shoulders have grown stronger from lifting saddles and bundles. The endless walking that once left you exhausted now feels almost natural. Yet fatigue never completely disappears. Some evenings your legs ache before you even sit down. Sometimes your hands remain stiff after tightening ropes all day. Sometimes you fall asleep before finishing your evening tea. The road asks something from you every single day. Not all at once. A little at a time. It is this quiet accumulation that makes the journey so demanding. One afternoon, rain begins falling gently across the valley. Not a violent storm. Only a steady shower that darkens the earth and fills the air with the rich scent of wet grass. The caravan continues walking. Soon everyone's clothing becomes damp. The road grows slippery. The physician quietly reminds travelers to dry their feet carefully that evening. Small sores ignored today may become painful infections next week. Again, survival depends upon attention to ordinary details. That evening, you sit beside the fire removing your boots. You notice a small blister beginning to form beneath one heel. Weeks ago you might have ignored it. Now you clean it carefully, wrap it with clean cloth, and allow it to rest. Experience has become your teacher. The physician smiles approvingly. The road punishes neglect, he says softly. But it rewards patience. His words seem true far beyond medicine. As summer slowly begins yielding to autumn, the caravan passes through villages preparing for harvest. Golden grain bends beneath the wind. Apple orchards grow heavy with fruit. Farmers gather families together for the busiest season of the year. Watching them, you think about the homes left behind by many travelers. Some have not seen their children in months. Others will spend another winter far from the villages where they were born. The road carries goods. It also carries loneliness. That evening, several companions quietly share stories of home. One remembers vineyards climbing gentle hillsides. Another speaks of fishing boats returning at sunrise. A third recalls the scent of jasmine growing outside his mother's doorway. No one speaks loudly. Homesickness does not need an audience. It simply needs understanding. You listen beneath the stars, realizing that every person beside the fire is carrying something heavier than cargo. Memories. Longing. Hope. The desire to return safely. As the camp gradually falls silent, you look toward the sleeping camels gathered nearby. They too are weary. They too continue walking each morning without complaint. The Silk Road has taught you many lessons. How to survive deserts. How to cross mountains. How to care for camels. How to navigate distant lands. Tonight it teaches something quieter. The greatest challenge is not always danger. Sometimes it is simply finding the strength to rise tomorrow, shoulder another day's work, and place one more patient step upon a road that still stretches far beyond the horizon. That quiet endurance, repeated day after day, is what has carried ordinary travelers across continents for centuries. Chapter 16: Why Every Traveler Needed Others. The morning begins with familiar sounds. A kettle sings softly above glowing coals. Camels stir from their rest, rising slowly beneath the first pale light of dawn. Someone tears fresh bread into equal portions. Another carefully folds blankets, still carrying the night's lingering warmth. Nothing feels remarkable. Yet after so many months upon the Silk Road, you have begun to understand that these quiet moments are the very reason the journey succeeds. No one prepares the camp alone. No one could. The caravan leaves just as the eastern sky begins turning gold. The valley ahead is peaceful, its fields touched with the first colors of autumn. Poplar leaves shimmer like tiny coins in the gentle breeze. Farmers work quietly among ripening grain while smoke rises from distant villages preparing breakfast. The road is kind today. Wide. Level. Easy beneath your feet. Yet even on easy roads, no traveler truly walks alone. As the caravan settles into its familiar rhythm, you notice how naturally people help one another without speaking. One man struggles to tighten a stubborn leather strap. Another quietly steps forward and lends his strength. A young woman lifting a heavy water skin receives help before she even asks. An elderly guide pauses briefly to steady a child climbing onto a wagon. None of these moments lasts more than a few heartbeats. None will ever be remembered in official records. Yet together they hold the entire caravan together. You begin thinking about your own first days upon the road. You remember fumbling with unfamiliar knots. Balancing cargo unevenly. Walking too quickly. Drinking too much water in the morning and too little during the afternoon. Someone always corrected you. Not with harsh words. With patient example. Without those quiet lessons, you would never have reached this point. The road teaches through people. By mid-morning, the caravan reaches a wooden bridge crossing a broad river. The structure is old but carefully maintained. Its heavy beams creak beneath the weight of loaded camels. The guides send the animals across one at a time. No one hurries. Halfway across, one frightened young camel hesitates. Its ears flatten. It refuses to take another step. The river rushes noisily beneath the bridge. The animal begins backing away. Immediately several experienced handlers move forward. No shouting. No striking. One stands calmly beside the frightened camel, resting a reassuring hand upon its neck. Another leads an older camel confidently across the bridge ahead of it. The younger animal watches. Slowly, almost reluctantly, it follows. Within moments, the crossing is complete. You smile quietly. Even the camels learn by trusting those who have walked before. The road continues through gently rolling hills where vineyards climb sunny slopes and orchards glow with ripe apples and pears. The harvest season has arrived. Farmers wave as the caravan passes. Some offer baskets of fresh fruit in exchange for news from distant lands. The caravan gladly shares what it knows. Which roads remain safe? Which mountain passes have already received early snow? Which markets are offering fair prices? The exchange feels natural. Knowledge has become another harvest. At midday, the caravan stops beside a broad meadow crossed by a clear stream. The grass is soft beneath your feet. The camels graze peacefully while lunch is prepared. As everyone gathers together, you notice that no two meals are exactly alike. One family shares olives preserved in salt. Another passes around dried apricots. Someone offers fragrant herbs gathered from yesterday's hills. A merchant produces a small pouch of precious pepper, sprinkling only the tiniest amount into the stew before passing it carefully to the next cook. Every contribution is small. Together they create abundance. An elderly woman sitting beside the fire notices your thoughtful expression. She smiles. One loaf feeds a traveler, she says softly. Many loaves feed a caravan. Her words remain with you long after lunch has ended. The afternoon journey brings another reminder. Dark clouds gather unexpectedly over the western hills. Soon gentle rain begins falling across the valley. Not enough to stop the caravan. Enough to make the road slippery. One wagon wheel sinks into soft earth beside the path. The heavy cart refuses to move. Its owner pushes with all his strength. Nothing happens. Without hesitation, people begin arriving from every part of the caravan. Some lift. Others gather flat stones to strengthen the muddy ground. Several encourage the oxen forward while others pull from behind. Within minutes, the wagon rolls free. The entire delay lasts only a short time. No payment changes hands. No reward is expected. Tomorrow someone else may need help. That understanding has become part of everyone's character. Late in the afternoon, the rain stops. The clouds drift away, revealing sunlight washing across the wet fields. Tiny drops of water cling to every blade of grass, sparkling like countless jewels. A rainbow stretches quietly above the distant hills. For several minutes, the entire caravan walks beneath its colors. No one speaks. Some moments ask only to be witnessed. As evening approaches, you arrive at a small village preparing for its autumn festival. Lanterns hang from wooden doorways. Children scatter flower petals along the main street. The scent of roasted grain and fresh bread fills the cool air. The villagers welcome the caravan warmly. Not because they expect great wealth. Because travelers bring stories. News. Friendship. The village elder invites everyone to share the evening meal beneath a broad oak tree standing at the center of the square. Long wooden tables are quickly filled. Bowls of steaming barley stew pass from hand to hand. Fresh apples are sliced and shared. Warm bread disappears almost as quickly as it arrives. Musicians quietly begin playing reed flutes and simple drums. Children dance in slow circles while older villagers clap gently to the rhythm. Several travelers join them. Others simply smile while watching. You realize something remarkable. Most of these people will never meet again. By sunrise, the caravan will continue east. The villagers will return to their fields. Yet for one evening, everyone belongs to the same community. Temporary. Ordinary. Completely real. After supper, the village elder speaks quietly beside the fire. He tells the children that roads are not made only from stones and dirt. They are made from people willing to welcome strangers. You look around the circle. The elderly monk. The Persian merchant. The camel handlers. The farmers. The children. The physician. The storytellers. Different lives. Different homes. Different futures. Yet tonight they share warmth beneath the same stars. When the festival ends, you walk beyond the village to where the caravan rests beside the fields. The moon has risen high above the valley. The camels sleep peacefully, their soft breathing blending with the distant sound of the river. You think back over the long journey. The desert could not have been crossed alone. The mountains would have been impossible alone. Illness would have been frightening alone. Even the simplest tasks, lifting cargo, finding water, preparing meals, would have become exhausting without companions. History often remembers famous explorers traveling into the unknown. The Silk Road tells a quieter story. It reminds you that ordinary people rarely survived because they were stronger than everyone else. They survived because they depended upon one another. As the fire burns lower, you wrap your blanket around your shoulders and look toward the road waiting in tomorrow's darkness. You no longer see it as a lonely path stretching across continents. You see it as a thread woven from countless acts of trust. Shared meals, helpful hands, patient guidance, simple kindness. Without those threads, the Silk Road would have unraveled long ago. Instead, they bound together strangers from thousands of miles apart and quietly connected civilizations, one ordinary traveler, one generous act, and one careful step at a time. Chapter 17: Why the Silk Road Worked. You wake before the others. For a few quiet moments, the world belongs only to the fading stars and the gentle glow of the eastern horizon. The campfire has nearly burned itself into glowing embers, sending thin ribbons of smoke into the cool autumn air. Around you, the camels remain peacefully asleep, their slow breathing almost matching the rhythm of the nearby river. The journey is nearing its end. Not because the Silk Road ends. It never truly does. But because your own year upon it is drawing to a close. You have crossed deserts where the wind erased yesterday's footprints before sunset. You have climbed mountains where snow lingered long after spring. You have rested beneath the shade of palm-filled oases and wandered through cities where dozens of languages filled the streets. You have carried silk, spices, tea, paper, glass, wool, and letters. You have shared bread with strangers who slowly became companions. Now, as another dawn begins, you find yourself asking a quiet question. How did all of this continue for centuries? How did a road stretching thousands of miles survive without belonging to any single kingdom, language, or people? As the caravan prepares for another day's travel, you begin noticing things that once seemed ordinary. Every knot securing the cargo has been tied carefully. Every camel has been inspected before sunrise. Every water skin has been checked for leaks. The guides quietly compare routes before choosing today's path. No one considers these tasks remarkable. Yet together they make the impossible possible. The Silk Road does not depend upon grand moments. It depends upon thousands of small ones completed faithfully every day. The road winds gently through broad farmland glowing beneath the soft light of early morning. Farmers wave from fields where the final harvest is nearly complete. Ox carts creak along narrow lanes carrying grain toward nearby villages. Children gather fallen apples beneath old orchard trees while their parents prepare fields for winter. Watching them, you understand something that once escaped your notice. The Silk Road could never exist without the people who never traveled it. Someone must grow the grain that feeds the caravans. Someone must weave the cloth used for tents and blankets. Someone must shape the clay jars carrying water across deserts. Someone must shoe the horses. Repair the bridges. Bake the bread. Keep the wells clean. The travelers depend upon those who stay behind just as surely as villages depend upon travelers bringing news and trade. The road belongs to both. By mid-morning, your caravan reaches a familiar caravanserai. Months ago, arriving at such places felt like reaching an island after crossing a vast sea. Now you notice details you once overlooked. The stable boys know exactly how to calm tired camels. The cook begins kneading bread long before hungry travelers arrive. The well has already been cleaned before dawn. Fresh straw has been spread inside the animal pens. Lanterns are repaired before darkness falls. None of these tasks receives praise. They are simply expected. Quiet competence has become another form of hospitality. The innkeeper recognizes several members of your caravan. Warm greetings are exchanged. News from distant cities follows. Has the Western Bridge finally been repaired? Did the spring rains fill the desert wells? Has early snow reached the northern pass? Each answer quietly changes the plans of future journeys. Information moves through the Silk Road just as steadily as caravans themselves. During the midday meal, you sit beside the elderly merchant who first showed you the shimmering silk many months ago. His beard has grown slightly longer. His face has become more deeply weathered by sun and wind. Yet his calm smile remains unchanged. He notices you watching the busy courtyard. You've learned to see the road, he says. At first, you think he means the path itself. The dusty track disappearing toward the horizon. He gently shakes his head. No. The people. You look again. A stable hand carefully brushes a camel's thick coat. A child carries clean water to tired travelers. A blacksmith repairs a broken stirrup before someone continues their journey. A physician quietly checks the bandage wrapped around an injured merchant's ankle. A scribe writes another letter that will travel farther than he ever will. The merchant is right. The Silk Road has never been only a road. It is a community spread across continents. The afternoon journey is peaceful. Golden leaves drift from rows of poplar trees lining the road. The cool breeze carries the scent of harvested fields and distant wood smoke. The familiar rhythm of walking feels almost comforting now. You realize that your footsteps have changed. During your first weeks, you constantly wondered how far remained. Now you simply walk. The road has taught patience without ever speaking the word. As the sun lowers toward the western hills, the caravan pauses beside an old stone bridge crossing a gentle river. You rest your hands upon its weathered railing. Countless travelers have stood exactly where you stand now. Some carried silk. Others carried salt. Some searched for profit. Others searched for knowledge, faith, family, or simply a better life. Most have left no names behind. Yet together they shaped history more quietly than many kings. The river beneath the bridge flows steadily onward. Its water never asks who built the bridge above it. It simply continues. The Silk Road feels much the same. Empires rise. Empires fade. Borders change. Languages evolve. The road adapts. Not because of rulers. Because ordinary people continue choosing to walk it. As evening settles across the valley, camp is made beside the river bank. The final light paints the water with shades of copper and gold. The familiar evening routine begins almost without thought. Camels are watered. Blankets unrolled. Bread warmed beside glowing coals. Tea poured into worn clay cups. The simple rituals have become part of you. After supper, you sit quietly beside the fire while sparks drift upward into the darkening sky. The caravan master joins you. For a long while, neither of you speaks. Finally, he gestures toward the glowing embers. A single piece of wood burns brightly, he says. But many together keep everyone warm. You watch the fire. No flame burns alone. Each supports the others. Only together do they create lasting warmth. The Silk Road has worked the same way for centuries. No caravan could cross it alone. No city could sustain it alone. No merchant, guide, camel handler, farmer, blacksmith, innkeeper, or shepherd could keep it alive by themselves. It endured because countless ordinary people contributed small acts of care, honesty, patience, and hard work without expecting history to remember them. The fire gradually settles into glowing embers. Above, the stars spread across the sky with quiet certainty. The same stars that guided your first uncertain steps now watch over a traveler who has become part of the road itself. Tomorrow the journey will continue. But tonight, beneath the calm autumn sky, you finally understand why the Silk Road lasted for centuries. Not because it was rich. Not because it was famous. But because generation after generation of ordinary people chose cooperation over isolation, trust over suspicion, and steady perseverance over quick reward. That quiet choice, repeated every day across thousands of miles, became one of the greatest connections the ancient world had ever known. Chapter 18. Could you actually adapt? The morning arrives gently. A thin layer of mist rests above the river, and the grass beside the camp is silver with dew. The fire has burned down to glowing embers, yet someone is already kneeling beside it, feeding small pieces of wood into the coals until a steady flame returns. You watch the smoke rise into the pale sky and realize something surprising. This no longer feels unfamiliar. Months ago, waking beside a caravan would have filled you with uncertainty. You would have wondered where the next well might be, how to load a camel correctly, whether you could keep pace with experienced travelers, or how you would communicate with people whose languages you did not understand. Now your hands reach automatically for the morning tasks. You fold your blanket. Check the straps on your saddle. Inspect your camel's feet. Refill your water skin. Accept a cup of tea with quiet gratitude. The road has changed you through repetition more than through dramatic moments. As the caravan begins moving, the autumn air feels cool and refreshing against your face. Leaves drift from the poplar trees lining the valley, and somewhere ahead a flock of birds lifts suddenly into the morning light. The rhythm of walking has become part of your body. Step. Bell. Step. Bell. You remember your first days, when every mile felt long and every bundle seemed impossibly heavy. You remember the blisters that covered your feet, the awkward knots that came loose at the worst possible moments, the embarrassment of asking questions whose answers seemed obvious to everyone else. None of that feels shameful now. It feels necessary. Every experienced traveler was once a beginner standing exactly where you stood. The caravan master falls into step beside you. He has become quieter over the months, or perhaps you have simply learned to listen more carefully. You walk differently now, he says. You glance down at your dusty boots. How? You no longer fight the road. His words stay with you as the valley gradually opens into broad farmland dotted with small villages. Farmers are gathering the last bundles of grain before winter. Smoke rises from chimneys, carrying the scent of burning wood and freshly baked bread. Could you have adapted to this life if you had been born into it? The question follows you through the morning. You think about everything you have learned. The road has taught you all of these things. Not through formal lessons. Through daily necessity. Near midday, the caravan stops beside a small village where a harvest celebration is being prepared. Women spread grain to dry in the sunlight while children decorate doorways with woven garlands of autumn flowers. The villagers welcome the caravan warmly. Fresh bread is offered. Apples are shared. A place beside the well is cleared for the camels. As you sit beneath a tree eating lunch, you notice how naturally you now accept such hospitality. At the beginning of the journey, every new village felt uncertain. You worried about customs you did not know, words you could not understand, and mistakes you might accidentally make. Now you simply watch, listen, and follow the example of those around you. Adaptation, you realize, is not becoming someone else. It is learning how to move respectfully through unfamiliar worlds. An elderly woman from the village sits beside you and asks where the caravan has come from. When you mention the deserts and mountain passes behind you, she shakes her head with admiration. I could never live such a life, she says. You smile. Only months ago, you would have said the same thing. The afternoon road is easy, giving you plenty of time to think. You remember the sandstorm that swallowed the horizon. The freezing wind on the high pass. The fever that left one of your companions trembling beside the fire. The long stretches of loneliness when thoughts of home became almost painful. Could you truly endure this for years rather than months? The honest answer surprises you. Perhaps. Not because you have become exceptionally strong. Because you have learned that survival is rarely a solitary achievement. When you were exhausted, others shared the work. When you were uncertain, someone offered guidance. When supplies ran low, people pulled what they had. The Silk Road did not ask you to become invincible. It asked you to become dependable. As evening approaches, the caravan makes camp beside a grove of walnut trees. Their branches are heavy with the season's final nuts, and the ground is scattered with fallen leaves that crunch softly beneath your boots. While supper cooks, several travelers begin talking about the winter ahead. Some will continue west before the passes close. Others plan to remain in a nearby city until spring. Routes are discussed. Weather signs compared. Supplies counted. No one assumes the future will be easy. That, perhaps, is the greatest change in you. At the beginning of the journey, you expected the road to become easier once you learned its rules. Now you understand that the road is always changing. Deserts shift. Rivers flood. Snow arrives early. Wells dry unexpectedly. Caravans are delayed. Animals fall ill. Adaptation is not a skill you learn once. It is something you practice every day. After supper, you walk a short distance away from the camp. The moon has risen above the dark outline of distant hills, bathing the valley in soft silver light. Behind you, the campfire glows warmly among the trees, and you can hear the quiet murmur of your companion settling in for the night. You think about the person who first woke inside a crowded caravanserai nearly a year ago. That traveler was not weak, only unprepared. The road did not transform you into a hero. It transformed you into someone who understands the value of preparation, patience, and other people. You look toward the dark road disappearing beyond the hills. Could you actually adapt to life on the Silk Road? For a season, yes. For a year, perhaps. For a lifetime, only if you accepted a difficult truth. You would never master the road completely. You would always depend upon guides who know the passes, innkeepers who keep the fires burning, farmers who grow the grain, camel handlers who understand the animals, and strangers willing to share water when your own skin is nearly empty. The stars brighten overhead, clear and steady. Tomorrow will bring another day's journey. Not a test of bravery. Simply another opportunity to rise before dawn, shoulder your responsibilities, help the people beside you, and keep walking. And as you return toward the warmth of the campfire, you realize that adaptation is not about becoming fearless. It is about learning that fear, uncertainty, exhaustion, and homesickness can all travel beside you, and still not prevent the next quiet step forward. Chapter 19: Why Ordinary Travelers Changed History. The final weeks of your journey arrive almost unnoticed. The seasons have turned once again. The sharp green of spring has given way to the warm gold of autumn, and now the first quiet signs of winter begin to appear across the land. Morning frost lingers a little longer upon the grass. The wind carries a cooler edge. Trees that once sheltered the road with deep green leaves now scatter shades of amber and crimson across the path beneath your feet. The Silk Road never truly stops. But it is always changing. You leave the camp before sunrise, just as you have done for countless mornings before. The motions feel almost effortless now. You fold your blanket without thinking. You tighten the familiar leather straps around your camel's saddle. You check the water skins. You share a few quiet words over fresh bread and warm tea before the caravan begins to move. Months ago, every task demanded concentration. Now your hands remember before your mind does. The road has become part of you. The valley ahead is peaceful. A river winds through fields where farmers are gathering the last harvest before winter. Smoke rises gently from stone cottages, carrying the comforting scent of burning oak and freshly baked bread. Flocks of cranes circle high above, beginning their own long journey toward warmer lands. You find yourself wondering how many thousands of travelers have watched these same birds while walking this same road. Perhaps more than anyone could ever count. By mid-morning, your caravan reaches another busy crossroads. For roads meet beside a broad marketplace filled with wagons, horses, camels, and travelers from every direction. Some caravans are just beginning their journeys. Others, like yours, carry the quiet confidence that comes only after many months upon the road. You stop beside the well while the camels drink. Nearby, a young boy watches your caravan with wide, curious eyes. He cannot be more than 10 years old. His father, a local merchant, notices his fascination. One day, the father says with a smile, "Perhaps you will travel too." The boy gazes toward the long line of camels disappearing into the morning mist. For him, the Silk Road is still an adventure waiting to begin. You smile, remembering when you felt the same. The marketplace hums gently with ordinary life. A blacksmith repairs worn horseshoes. A woman carefully measures out sacks of grain. Children carry baskets of figs from stall to stall. A scribe patiently copies contracts for merchants who cannot write. An elderly potter shapes another clay jar upon his wheel. None of them believes they are changing history. Yet every one of them is. The merchant who once guided you notices where your thoughts have wandered. He joins you beside the well. People speak of emperors, he says quietly. They speak of famous generals and explorers. He pauses, watching a baker hand fresh bread to a weary traveler. But look around. You do. A stable boy brushes dust from a tired horse. An old woman stitches a torn cloak. A physician quietly checks an injured camel's leg. A cook stirs a pot of soup large enough to feed strangers from 5 different lands. No statues will ever be raised to these people. No poems will celebrate their names. History will almost certainly forget every one of them. Yet without them, nothing else could exist. The caravan leaves the crossroads and follows a road lined with ancient poplar trees. Golden leaves drift lazily through the cool afternoon air. The steady ringing of camel bells echoes softly beneath their branches. You think back over everything you have seen during this long year. Silk woven by families who never left their villages. Paper crafted by patient hands in quiet workshops. Spices gathered from distant forests. Glass shaped beside roaring furnaces. Tea harvested upon mist-covered hillsides. Every object began with ordinary labor. Long before merchants carried these treasures across continents, someone quietly created them. The Silk Road was never built by cargo alone. It was built by work. As the afternoon passes, your caravan overtakes a smaller group of travelers. One of their wagon wheels has broken beside the road. Without discussion, several members of your caravan stop to help. The damaged wheel is lifted. Fresh wooden wedges are carved. Strong rope is shared. Within an hour, the smaller caravan is moving again. The grateful travelers bow deeply before continuing their own journey. Soon both caravans disappear in opposite directions. No reward is exchanged. No names are recorded. Only another ordinary act of kindness added to thousands that have kept the road alive. Late in the afternoon, you climb a gentle hill overlooking the valley. The view stretches farther than ever before. Roads weave through fields, villages, rivers, forests, and distant mountains until they vanish beyond the horizon. Tiny caravans move along them like slow-moving threads connecting one land to another. From this height, you finally understand why people call it the Silk Road. Not because of silk itself. Because every road, every traveler, every village, and every city is woven together into something larger than any one person could ever see. Like threads in a great tapestry. Each one alone seems small. Together they create an entire world. As evening approaches, camp is made beside the ruins of an old watchtower overlooking the valley. Its weathered stones have stood there for generations, watching caravans come and go beneath changing skies. Some travelers gather firewood. Others prepare supper. The familiar routines unfold once again. After the meal, the caravan master invites everyone to sit quietly around the fire. No speeches are given. No grand celebration marks the nearing end of your year. Instead, stories are shared. One traveler remembers the first desert crossing of his youth. Another laughs softly about a stubborn camel that refused to cross a bridge many years ago. A merchant recalls meeting his future wife in a crowded caravanserai decades earlier. Simple memories. Ordinary lives. Yet together they tell the true story of the Silk Road. You sit listening beneath a sky crowded with stars. The fire crackles gently. The camels sleep nearby, their familiar silhouettes resting peacefully against the darkness. You realize that history often shines its brightest light upon extraordinary people. But civilizations endure because of ordinary ones. The farmers who plant seeds every spring. The innkeepers who leave lanterns burning for late arrivals. The bridge builders who repair flood damage before the next caravan arrives. The mothers who weave warm blankets for sons traveling far from home. The guides who remember hidden wells. The shepherds who point strangers toward safe paths. The children who grow up watching caravans pass and one day choose to join them. None of them expected to shape the world. Yet together they connected continents. They carried not only silk and spices, but trust, ideas, friendship, craftsmanship, and hope across thousands of miles. As the fire burns low and the camp slowly falls asleep, you understand something that seemed impossible when this journey began. History is rarely changed in a single dramatic moment. More often, it changes quietly. One careful step. One shared meal. One repaired harness. One honest trade. One act of kindness. Repeated across generations. The Silk Road became one of the greatest connections in human history, not because of legendary heroes, but because countless ordinary travelers woke before dawn, shouldered their burdens, trusted one another, and simply kept walking. And in doing so, they changed the world without ever realizing it. Chapter 20: Why You Wouldn't Survive, and That's Okay. The final morning arrives as quietly as the first. Before dawn, you open your eyes beneath the familiar weight of a wool blanket. The camp is wrapped in silence, broken only by the gentle breathing of sleeping camels and the soft crackle of a fire that has almost burned away. Above you, the stars still shine with the same calm brilliance that guided your first uncertain steps nearly a year ago. For a long while, you simply lie still. The air is cool against your face. A faint scent of wood smoke drifts through the camp. Somewhere beyond the darkness, a stream murmurs over smooth stones. The world seems to pause between night and day. Then, slowly, the caravan begins to wake. A kettle is placed over glowing embers. Someone kneads fresh dough for bread. Leather straps creak as saddles are lifted into place. The familiar bells tied around the camels' necks ring softly in the quiet dawn. These sounds once belonged to strangers. Now they feel like home. You rise and complete the morning routine almost without thinking. Fold the blanket. Roll the sleeping mat. Check the water skin. Inspect the harness. Offer your camel a gentle pat before fastening the final buckle. The movements are slow. Unhurried. You know there is no reason to rush. The road has taught you that every journey begins with careful preparation. As the eastern horizon brightens, the caravan sets out one last time. The path winds gently through an open plain where autumn grasses shimmer beneath the first golden light. A cool breeze carries the scent of dry earth, wild herbs, and distant pine forests. Birds rise from the fields as the caravan passes, their wings catching the morning sun. You walk in silence. Not because there is nothing left to say. Because there is finally enough understanding that words no longer seem necessary. You remember the frightened traveler who first woke in a crowded caravanserai. You remember fumbling with unfamiliar ropes, struggling to keep pace, wondering how anyone could survive such a demanding life. You remember the burning deserts where every drop of water mattered. The endless dunes shaped by relentless wind. The cool shade of palm-filled oases that appeared like miracles after days beneath the sun. You remember the towering mountains where snow covered narrow paths and every careful step demanded patience. The bustling caravanserais where strangers became companions over bowls of warm tea. The colorful marketplaces where silk fluttered beside spices, glassware, paper, and precious jade. The quiet temples. The echoing prayers. The bridges crossed. The rivers followed. The countless ordinary people whose kindness carried the journey forward. Each memory feels less like a separate chapter now. They have woven themselves together, just as the roads themselves have done. By midday, the caravan pauses beneath a grove of ancient walnut trees. Their branches cast wide circles of cool shade across the grass. Lunch is simple. Fresh bread. Goat cheese. Dried figs. Tea poured slowly into familiar clay cups. No feast could feel more satisfying. As everyone eats, the caravan master sits beside you. For a long time, he says nothing. Then he smiles. When you first joined us, he says softly, you watched the road. He gestures toward the travelers gathered beneath the trees. Now you watch the people. You nod. He is right. The greatest lesson of the Silk Road was never hidden in its deserts or mountains. It was hidden in those who walked beside you. The afternoon road is peaceful. The bells ring gently. The camels move with their patient rhythm. The breeze stirs golden leaves across the path. You begin thinking about the question that has followed this journey from the very beginning. Why wouldn't you survive a year on the Silk Road? The answer is not simple. It is not because the road was empty. It was full of life. Not because it was uncivilized. It connected some of the most remarkable cities in the ancient world. Not because people were cruel. Again and again, strangers offered food, shelter, guidance, and friendship. The truth is quieter. You might not survive because every single day demanded something from you. Patience when the road seemed endless. Discipline when your body begged for rest. Humility when you needed help. Wisdom to conserve water beneath the burning sun. Courage to continue through mountain snow. Kindness towards strangers whose language you could not understand. Trusting companions who often became your only family. The Silk Road asked for these things every morning. Not once. Not twice. Every day. That is what made it extraordinary. As evening approaches, the caravan reaches a broad hill overlooking the road stretching toward the horizon. The guides stop without speaking. One by one, the travelers quietly gather there. Below, another caravan slowly winds across the valley. Tiny figures moving patiently between distant towns. The journey never ends. One caravan arrives. Another departs. One generation grows old. Another takes its place. The road continues. The setting sun bathes the valley in warm amber light. The rivers shimmer like ribbons of gold. Far away, mountain peaks glow beneath fresh snow. Beyond them lie deserts you have already crossed. Beyond those deserts lie cities where markets are still closing for the evening. Beyond those cities, families gather around supper, bakers prepare tomorrow's bread, monks copy another page, shepherds bring their flocks home, and somewhere, another young traveler prepares for a first uncertain journey. The world keeps moving. Not because of famous rulers. Not because of conquerors. Because ordinary people quietly continue their work. The caravan remains upon the hill until the last light begins fading. Then everyone returns to camp. Tonight the fire burns a little brighter. Stories are shared one final time. Laughter rises softly into the cool evening air. Someone pours one last cup of tea. The stars slowly appear overhead. The same stars that watched over your first fearful night. You sit beside the glowing embers long after many others have fallen asleep. The camels rest peacefully nearby. A cool breeze carries the faint scent of distant cedar forests. The fire crackles gently before settling into glowing coals. You realize that surviving a year on the Silk Road was never about becoming fearless. It was never about becoming the strongest traveler. It was never about mastering every language, memorizing every road, or carrying the richest cargo. It was about waking before dawn when your body still ached. Helping someone before they asked. Accepting help without shame. Learning from people whose lives were different from your own. Respecting the desert instead of fighting it. Listening to the mountains instead of challenging them. Understanding that every successful journey is built from thousands of quiet decisions made with care. That is why most modern people would struggle here. Not because they lack intelligence. Not because they lack courage. But because this world demanded a kind of patience, endurance, cooperation, and humility that cannot be learned overnight. It was earned slowly. One sunrise at a time. One careful step after another. One ordinary day repeated through every season of the year. The fire finally fades into darkness. You pull your blanket around your shoulders and look once more toward the endless road disappearing beneath the stars. Tomorrow another caravan will rise before dawn. Another traveler will tighten leather straps, fill water skins, and begin walking toward a horizon they cannot yet imagine. Perhaps they too will discover what you have learned. That the Silk Road was never truly about silk. It was about people. About trust carried farther than any caravan. About kindness exchanged more often than coins. About ordinary lives quietly connecting civilizations across deserts, mountains, rivers, and generations. And as sleep gently returns beneath the vast night sky, you understand the final truth. You wouldn't survive a year on the Silk Road because it demanded more than strength. It demanded resilience, patience, adaptability, faith in others, a willingness to become part of something much greater than yourself. And that's okay. Because the greatest legacy of the Silk Road was never the treasures it carried. It was the ordinary people who, through quiet determination and endless cooperation, stitched together the ancient world, one careful step, one shared meal, and one hopeful sunrise at a time. The end.